That's good. I'm turning mine off.
Check. Mic check. Now, a little better.
Checking. 1, 2, 3, checking.
Same. Hi, Macy. How's it sounding? Good.
All right, with all of the technical issues addressed, calling to order this meeting of the Nederland Board of Trustees at 7:04 p.m. Macy, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Taylor,
Here.
Trustee Blakemore,
Here.
Trustee Corvalon. Here. Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Here.
and Trustee Baumhover.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do any of the trustees have comments regarding the consent agenda, or do I hear a motion to approve or disapprove?
One comment first. This is the shortest contract I've ever seen. For Safeville, kudos for that. And I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Macy, will you please call the vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Trustee Blakemore.
Yes.
Thank you.
Having approved the consent agenda, we now move to public comment. Public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone who would like to speak, get our attention, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And optionally, we may ask you questions for 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Rich Orman, O-R-M-A-N. I'm a Nederland resident. I've spoken at these meetings before at least once. I wanted to talk about the crosswalk at First and the highway right before you go over the bridge. A couple of months ago, my wife and I were driving across this at night, and frankly, I almost hit somebody. It was very dark. It was very difficult to see. And I've noticed lately the markings have started to wear out. I mean, that's just normal maintenance. I understand that. What I'm asking the council to consider is looking into installing one of those things that you see at crosswalks in Boulder where the yellow lights flash and it really makes you aware that there's a pedestrian there. And I'm just asking that the council consider that. The other thing I want to talk about in my little bit of time is elections in the town. So I voted for my first time or had the opportunity to vote. I didn't vote the first time this year as a new elector in town. And what concerned me about the ballot was there was a voter number written on top of it. And the envelope I received from the town had that number and my name. So obviously there's a database and people at the town can find out what the voter number is. And speaking with the town clerk, there is a process of opening it up. I don't think they're looking on purpose at who someone voted for, but they can see it. They can see the number, they can see the vote. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the town clerk right now or town staff that they would abuse that. But she's not going to be the town clerk for the rest of eternity. And we have seen election officials in our state get indicted for election offenses. So it's a real issue. And I would ask the council to think about a real controversial election. And in a small town, it can be much more controversial than a big town. Let's say there's a real odious person, maybe like a white supremacist on the ballot. I wouldn't want to vote for that person, but people have the right to, and they have the right to do it in secrecy. The right to a secret ballot is enshrined in our state constitution. So I would ask that the council consider a ballot procedure that ensures secrecy of the vote. And I can think of a number of different ways to do that, or just go to in-person elections where people drop off their ballots in a ballot box, and that's not an issue. I know that there's a state statute that requires some type of identifier on the ballot, so the town is probably complying with that statute. but I don't think the town is complying with the constitutional right to a secret ballot. That's all I have to say.
So does anyone on the board have any questions for the speaker?
I have, this is not for the speaker, but I hope that we're going to have a chance for the clerk to address it.
Then let's take a moment and ask the clerk to address your question. Thank you very much. Very thoughtful comments. Thank you very
I'm going to
much.
sit down then. Thank you.
Can I address both, starting with Safer Main Streets? So let me just share my screen here. So Rich, this is, you cannot see this very well, but this is First Street over by the Visitor Center. And under the Safer Main Streets, we are doing designated crosswalks. Now, unfortunately, these ones won't have the flashing signs, but they will be indicated better than they are right now through this pavers. And so we hope that that will make a difference. So that's Safer Main Streets. In regards to the ballot numbers, so currently in state statute, under paper ballots, there are ballot numbers. We use that, so if you cannot verify the signature on the back of the ballot itself, it may sometimes just be a scribble. The ballot number allows us to determine who that ballot belongs to. We actually did, Rich and I did talk, and so we did talk with CML and just seeing like what are some alternatives here to that process, and we were informed that we could use voter ID numbers on the front of the envelopes, which Rich and I did talk about. And so what that would do is prevent the need to actually have to open the ballot, and we could then compare the number that would be on the return address section. We could compare that number with the log and the signature without ever actually having to physically open the ballot.
So I have a question. Is that change one that would require the approval of the BOT?
No, so that allows us, the identifier allows us to still meet that need.
Sure.
Which is to verify who the ballot belongs to. It's still kind of a state statute, so elections are ran statutorily. So the Board of Trustees can't change the procedure, but that gives us an alternative way to work through that same issue. But currently the ballot log number is a part of the paper ballot structure.
Very fine. So, but there are some possibilities for improving
Correct.
the
So
sequence.
our intention when you go to your special election is to do the voter ID number on the, so what will happen is when you get your ballot, it'll have a label with your voter ID number and your name. And then your return envelope in the upper corner will have your voter ID number and your name. And again, if we can't read your signature because it's just a scribble, it allows us to just flip the envelope over and see who it belongs to versus actually having to open and check that number.
Very fine. Thank you. Would anyone else from the public like to speak on a non-agenda item? Miranda, could you restore the original entry there? Whoever would like to speak, step forward, give us your name, tell us if you're a resident or not, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name is May Gerald, and I'm a town resident. I want to agree with the last speaker that that's an issue, the pedestrian. And I think that the town really needs to communicate somehow with CDOT. I know it's a challenge. But the flashing lights that have been installed on the highway are in violation. I'm talking about the ones that advertise pedestrian crossing ahead. They're by the RTD lot, they're by the Calvary Church, and they're over by the shopping center. I find that when I drive by one of those, I'm very light sensitive. It blinds me. It makes me incapable of seeing a pedestrian. Plus, they're in violation of our town lighting ordinance. And the one on by the RTD flashes directly into my house. So when I get up in the early morning, and I'm one of those people that like to hear the birds wake up and the sky lighten, I have a flashing orange light right in my face. I'd also like to address the meeting that's scheduled for tomorrow at the Old Town Shop site. I went to Town Hall today, and there were several meetings in 2018 that weren't listed in your packet for the meeting tomorrow. And I have sent an email. Did you get that out? I know you don't have your computer with you, Julian, but our neighborhood has withstood assault after assault on our zoning. There have been 5, 6 meetings just in the last couple years on rezoning this, and every time it has failed. It does not meet the requirements that we have on our own form. You know, it says, support your application. Is it going to change the nature of the area? And yes, it will. And I state in my letter that this is just a drop in the bucket in terms of the housing needs of the community. My own feeling is if you look at the map, that site is bordered in Sunnyside by low-density residential. It's in medium-density residential. And then on my side, it's mountain residential. So it makes a lot of sense that this would be a little place for mountain bikers to stop, hikers to stop, maybe a map, a little pocket park. We talked about this in Envision 2030. So I really hope that the discussion that's scheduled for tomorrow, I feel, is inappropriate, frankly. I stopped to talk to one of my neighbors about it the other day. My other neighbor, whose 2 family members had died in the last couple weeks, wasn't home, and the kids let the dog out. It attacked my neighbor's dog and her husband. They both had to go to the doctor. This is the kind of consequence that we in our neighborhood are facing of this constant barrage of meetings and wanting to do something with our town public property without really fully noticing, without really following what we agreed in Vision 2030. We're going to look into this as a pocket park for this area has very few public places this side of town. Fits right into the trail plan, or it could. So I just want to urge the board to really consider strongly whether you want to put the neighborhood through this again. Really, it's been hard for us in the neighborhood, not to mention the fact that the place has been a dump for a long time. So I think we're ready to move forward with the pocket park. And how many meetings is enough? 5, 10, 15, where it gets shot down over and over and over again? I'm just asking you, I know you're not going to cancel the meeting, but to at least tell people the 2017 resolution by the Board of Trustees is by no means the last word. The Ordinance 782 in December 8th, 2020 codifies there are no changes. We're leaving it as public. We're not rezoning it NC. And that was what all those meetings were about, to try to do that. So does anyone have any questions?
Yes, does anyone on the board have any questions for the speaker? Thank you, Ms. Gerald. Oh, do you have a
Wait,
question?
I had a question. This is Tanya.
Please go.
I got a little confused with the dogs attacking your neighbor. Was that a direct result of one of the meetings that were held at the Pocket Park or at the Old Town site? I was confused about that.
It was a result of me stopping the couple that lives over there, and one of them stopped to talk to me and the other one continued and to talk about this meeting on Wednesday. And while they were separated, their dog and the man got attacked. And I'm just saying, I mean, we're constantly having to deal with this in the neighborhood, and this is just another example of how unintended consequences, how it really does have a consequence for us. We're kind of tired of it.
But I'm also, one more question. I was under the impression that the Old Town shop site was good for affordable housing. Like that was the original intention of it.
Well, I
past
think you would
paperwork.
think that by looking at what you've been provided, but I've listed the meetings. I've also dug into the Mud Lake thing a little bit. I don't know if you had a chance to check it, about the escrow account, the 144,000 that was in the escrow account and how to use that. But it's been a dream of some people to put affordable housing there. It's been pretty roundly defeated by the neighbors ever since
But
the year
why are
2000.
you against affordable housing or housing in general in that area when it's a residential area? I understand the objection last time for the health
I'm not
clinic.
against housing. If they want to put in 2 houses on the creek there, one of our last remaining public wetlands or creekside locations, I don't think it's a very wise land use, but there's only 2 lots there. Otherwise,
Right.
they have to rezone it.
Oh,
So,
I see.
yeah,
Yep. For the density.
exactly. In order to make it feasible, you'd have to change the zoning. And nobody in the neighborhood wants that. And it's a very nice neighborhood. Actually, we all love it. We just
Okay.
like to see that area reflect the beauty of the neighborhood. And I'm ready to go forward with some low-income housing on my lot. My property is bigger than that lot. And I've been trying to work with the town for quite a while on
Oh,
tap fees
to-
and so forth.
To build on it? To subdivide it or what? The same thing?
I'm ready to say, I want to put in 18 units of apartment buildings, let's talk. I don't know. That's
Right,
not
right.
what I want to do because I don't want to cut down the old growth trees. But I feel like if you're going to trash the neighborhood, let's trash it.
Well, it's just that that lot has no trees on it right now, so it wouldn't be trash. It's already pretty trashed. But
I know,
well, I hear you.
We're talking about spot zoning, and that's been the objection.
And that is the 3 minutes. Thank you very much, Ms. Gerald. Would anyone else like to speak on a non-agenda item?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Kathleen
Ron
Shipai.
Mitchell,
What's that?
Ms.
Hello?
Shipai,
Right,
please
Ron
proceed.
Mitchell, I'd like to be recognized after Kathleen.
Go ahead, Ron. I'll speak after you.
Can
Ron,
you hear
proceed.
me now?
Yes.
I'd like to speak to Rich Orman's comments. I was an election judge. There were 4 of us. We divided the jobs, and I was the individual who read every single signature of every single voter and compared it. I'd like to invite Rich to be an election judge. Several people approached me about the numbers and questions about privacy. And I can assure you that in at least this election, those numbers were cut off by one of the judges before they were given to me. So there was no way I could, and we did this intentionally. The election was probably one of the best organized and fairest and compliant, but it was also awkward. So I agree with you. I think there's a better way to ensure privacy, but I also would encourage you to become involved. Thank you very much.
Does anyone on the board have a question for Mr. Mitchell? Hearing none, thank you very much. Ms. Shipai, please proceed.
Kathleen Shipai, 30-year resident, 18-year business owner. I was looking at the non-agenda public comment included in the packet, and I saw a number of letters that said livestock feedlots are not permitted in the town in Nederland. And I went to the town code and searched livestock and feedlots, and there are 0 mentions in the code. So they're lawful, quite honestly. Not that anyone's going to have a livestock feedlot, but in the town limits. But if something is not in the code, and we had a lot of confusion with this back with Alicia Reese, if it's not in the code, it's lawful. This is the United States of America. And if there's no law against something or regulating something, then it is lawful. It doesn't mean, we went through this years ago. If it's not in the code, it's lawful, okay? So I'm confused as to why all these letters start out, livestock feedlots are not permitted in the town of Nederland. That is a mistake. Now, I think this has to do with the goats, people wanting to change the goat language. So they cited prohibited keeping of animals. 1, it is unlawful for any person to keep, harbor, or care for or possess any animal within the town limits which is not a pet animal, okay, defined herein. So I look up pet animal in the code. A pet animal is defined for the purpose of this code as says any dog, cat, bird, rabbit, guinea pig, hamster, mouse, snake, iguana, turtle, chicken, hen, or any other species of domestic animal. Then when I look up domestic, it is not in the code, so we revert to the regular meaning of domestic, which means tame and kept by humans. So any animal that is tame and kept by humans can be a pet animal in Netherlands. So I wanted to clarify that. Nobody's violating any laws. Then the other thing I want to bring up is Section 2-4 of the Netherlands Town Code. It says, the persons elected to trustee positions at every regular election shall serve 4-year terms, provided, however, that in the event that any election year there are more than 3 trustee positions to be filled, the persons receiving the 4th highest number of votes or less shall be elected to 2-year terms. So we have a problem because Julian Taylor, when he took the oath as mayor, left an open seat on the Board of Trustees, and this seat, according to our code, should have been filled by the 4th highest number of vote getters. And this language, when you break it down, says, provided, however, in the event, and this event is happening right now. We have an open seat. So, and that is the event of a mayor becomes a trustee becomes mayor while in the middle of their trustee term. So we have an event, provided that in the event that in any election year, the entire year, not just the election, so the entire year of 2022, there are more than 3 trustee positions. In addition to the 3 trustee positions, seats open every election year. We have that happening. The event is occurring now. To be filled, the person receiving the 4th highest number of votes is David Stipe.
That is your 3 minutes. Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, great. Anybody have any questions?
Does anyone have any questions?
I do. This is Tanya. I agree with you regarding the election.
Please start the clock.
But when I did a simple Google search of domestic pet, it means an animal which is normally kept inside a dwelling. And that's to me what domestic means, is kept inside a dwelling.
You found that in the Netherlands Code?
No, you said there was no definition of domestic in the Netherlands Code, so I just resort to like a law definition of domestic pet. And that's
any dictionary, you mean? Yeah. Is that what you're doing?
So domestic pet means an animal which is normally kept inside a dwelling, and they include dogs, cats, parrots, similar sized animal, but does not include livestock. This is just one Google search I did. Obviously, I only didn't do like an extensive one. So I think
but you're looking up the wrong terminology. It's pet animal. Pet animal is what it is, and then it says domestic animal, any other species of domestic animal.
Well, I'll look that up, but I'm pretty sure
domestic. And you look up the word domestic, and it's tame and kept by humans.
Well, I see it's inside a home, dwelling, and does not include livestock. So,
right, and in legal, North Court of Law, any regular definition, since there's not a legal definition, there is for a legal definition for pet animal in the Netherlands Code. A pet animal is also a domestic animal. Any other species of domestic animal.
Okay. Well, I just think that there is some room for argument on that, and we're not talking about that today. That's something going before.
I agree with you, Tanya, and I just want to say that I don't know where the terminology livestock feedlots came from, because those are not mentioned in the Netherlands Code whatsoever. Yeah. Neither livestock nor feedlots. And when you look up domestic, it could be a cow. A domestic, as long as it's human friendly.
Well, this might mean what they're hoping, that we make some amendments, maybe change the word animal to pet, or discuss it more in depth, which is why it's going through all these different levels of discussion. But anyway, thanks, Kathleen.
Yeah, no problem.
So how much time do we have left?
40 seconds.
All right, very fine. Is that it for the questions? Very fine then. Thank you, Ms. Chipai. Does anyone else want to speak on a non-agenda item? I'm the Luddite here, so I watch her. She has the computer.
I'm watching. And just a reminder, if you're on the phone, press *6.
*6. All right. Hearing nothing, seeing nothing, we move on to staff reports.
So,
Miranda.
Thank you. Staff reports are in your packet. As a reminder, our department heads won't be here, so if you have questions, please email them, but I have a few updates that are not in the report. First, I just want to do the staff accolades. For those of you who interacted with the Youth Advisory Board, I think you know what an incredible and dynamic group that is. 3 of them, 3 out of 6, are wrapping up their senior year and graduating, so they won't stay with us. So just wanted to do that acknowledgement for Nate, Tabby, and Rowan, and just the group as a whole. It's a really exciting board, and I know that every time someone comes, they just rant and rave about how incredible it is. So really excited for the work they've done and that they'll continue to do. COVID update. Testing will be ending at the end of June. So June 24th will be the last testing day. We have rapid kits galore between the community center and town hall. So we encourage anyone can come and get those, but that official testing will end. And then the sites available will be, I believe, still in Lafayette or Longmont. Currently, vaccine clinics will stay. We don't have any end right now for that. Wanted to talk Big Springs egress. In my report here, I noted that I was going to talk with FEMA. So FEMA did indicate that egress is still kind of an unknown, whether it's an eligible expense. It's not a no, but it's not a yes. And so they said move full steam ahead. What we would be doing is asking FEMA for that $525,000 Congressman Nagoose gave us. If that's not an eligible expense, we could pivot and then use that money towards fire mitigation. So the application for FEMA opens on May 20th. It has a very aggressive turnaround time of 30 days. So I will be emailing the Board of Trustees with more information once that application opens. The last thing I have is Jennifer Landon, our utilities manager, has submitted her resignation. She is moving to Gunnison. So we have posted for a utilities manager. It's a unique position because they need water and wastewater distributions and collection certification. Jennifer Landon and Chris Pelletier were unique in that regard, that they had them all. In the interim, we will be contracting ORC services. So we are doing some walkthroughs with different ORCs. That is not our long-term by any means, but it will fill the gap because Jen's last day is June 4th. Also, we added kind of a late add is town cleanup is also June 4th. That's why it's her last day, because that's a fun day. We would ask the Board of Trustees to come volunteer if you're interested, or at least participate. So that will be open at 8 a.m. until noon, or when the dumpsters are full. And then Macy, do you want to give just a quick update on Public Works Week?
Yeah, sure. So this week is actually nationally recognized as Public Works Week. The theme for this year is ready and resilient. And the explanation behind the theme is that public works professionals are always ready to serve their communities and resilient in their abilities to pick themselves up off the ground after encountering challenges. So if you see any of our public works out during this week, please just take a moment to thank them for their hard work and their dedication. This town would not be the same without them. They provide us all of our clean water, clean parks, clean streets. There are some funny videos on YouTube if you imagine a day in the life without Public Works. So thank you, Public Works, for everything you do.
I have a question for Miranda about the staff report. Can I ask that?
Please proceed.
Okay. Miranda, about the emergency preparedness meetings that you're having to ensure that we are prepared as possible for wildfire, and the town's meeting with Fire Protection District, department heads, peak-to-peak housing, human services, Red Cross, Boulder County Office of Disaster Management. I'm wondering if the BOT could get a presentation on how the town is prepared for a wildfire.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd be happy to come. So currently Chief Feinlevin and Chief Scott and I are working on definitely the workflow and doing it in an hourglass shape, because you're going to have this whole group up top of the fire department, the police department. And then there's this supplemental group that if we need to do an evacuation center or shelter. And so we'd be happy to talk through that. And then also how we're going to navigate emergency evacuations. There is kind of a polygraph grid that they're working on. So probably won't have that quite ready for June 7th, but we'd be happy to come that second meeting in June and give a presentation.
That would be wonderful.
Great.
Are there any more staff reports?
There
Other
are
than
plenty in the packet.
They're
That's
in
all
the packet.
those are my highlights.
Those are the verbal highlights. Very good. So now we're moving on to the Board of Trustee reports. Mine is first. I'm technically on the Board of Zoning Adjustment. There was no meeting, so I have no report on that. However, everyone here probably knows that this may be my last BOT meeting as mayor. I want to say that it has been a tremendous honor working with the highly skilled town staff and with the trustees and with Mayor Chris Larson. I'd like everyone to understand that public service is an honorable calling. Those who take on that calling, those who practice it sincerely and with discipline and in hopes of serving the people, are worthy of respect. That respect is deserved. And the next time anyone on this board is openly slandered, I want you to remember that fact, that what you're doing is honorable and worthy of respect. And it has been an honor working with you. Now let's move on to Mayor Pro Tem Mahold's report.
Since we were just talking about preparedness, I think the two most significant things I did over the last few weeks were meeting with the community on a Saturday morning here in the community center to talk about how we're preparing for wildfire, and then going over to Blackhawk to get down to the nitty-gritty of what an emergency operations center looks like, what our obligations are as elected officials to not only prepare for a disaster, take the community through the disaster, but to rebuild after the disaster. It was sobering. The other thing I wanted to talk about was some of the things we've been doing with. One more thing, Julian, I wanted to follow up on something that's in the Mountaineer this week on how to participate in local government. There's 14 open positions. I would ask anybody that's listening to consider it and talk with as many people as you can. I agree that it is honorable. These are board positions of significance that I would say please consider running. The last thing I want to talk about was the sustainability coordinator update, which you'll see in your packet from Erica. We're making some really good progress there, and I think that there's some things that have coming out of the state legislature, which just closed on Friday, that we're going to need to dig into. I'll send around there's a CC4CA did an update, and virtually all the things that Nederland cared about, we got through. It was a really cantankerous legislature this year. It went into the 11th hour. There was a lot of parliamentary maneuvering. And then in the end, there were a lot of deals cut in the hallway that I think are ones that will really benefit us, including free days on RTD when ozone gets high, to money for not just preparedness, but for recovery afterwards, to some things that our sustainability folks have been pushing for a while. Our sustainability team is really making some tracks to the point where we're pushing the folks in Denver pretty hard as a small mountain committee. So I'm really proud of the work they've done. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Baumhofer, or Mahold, because I'm now moving to Trustee Baumhofer. Trustee Baumhofer, your report.
I actually have nothing to report due to being ill during my last meeting, but looking forward to finally getting to meet this youth advisory board tomorrow.
Trustee Blakemore.
So this past month, I've been focusing on transportation. I was assigned as the liaison, BOT liaison to the Boulder County Transportation Funding Board. And that board is looking at extending or expanding the current 0.1% sales tax. That's a Boulder County sales tax, and it expires at the end of 2024. Kathleen Brocky, who's the Deputy Director of Transportation Planning for Boulder County, offered to come meet with us and talk about the sales tax and transportation initiatives that would be of interest to the Nederland community. So I'm hoping that we can meet with her during one of the upcoming BOT meetings or work sessions. I've also been attending the Boulder County Subregional Forum Technical Advisory Committee, and this group is responsible for county-wide DRCOG TIP grants, and I've been investigating the possibility of a TIP grant to fund a transportation master plan. So this master plan would be a 30-year plan that would lay out what we want to do transportation-wise, including parking, alternative multimodal transportation, and that would include a traffic forecast. And so I've been working on that, and Tom Holland and I will plan to have an aim on the June 7th BOT agenda requesting approval for the grant application. So, and I also learned about funding opportunity with Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program, so I'm going to be looking into that. And I attended the Peak to Peak Scenic Byways meeting that Miranda Fisher chairs, and that group is pursuing a $1.2 million planning environmental linkage grant, and my primary interest there is in public transportation. Let's see, what else? Okay. Oh, the Solar Ordinance Subcommittee is continuing to meet. This is a subcommittee of the Planning Commission. I'm a member of that group, and we're looking at ways to remove barriers for people to install PV solar systems on their home properties or business. And we're currently discussing whether we should allow solar panels to exceed the maximum building height of 35 feet as a use by right, or by requiring a special review. That's most applicable to flat roofs with tilted panels like this building, although the newer technology does not require them to be so vertical, so they wouldn't be that viewable. Although it would also apply to buildings with slanted roofs that currently exceed 35 feet. So that's it.
Thank you, Trustee Blakemore. Trustee Coombs Esmail.
ProSab has begun the Trails Master Planning outreach phase to the public beyond the survey that we took. So we were at the Nederland Farmers Market, and it got a lot of people stopping by and a lot of great feedback on that. I've got a lot of notes that I've taken a lot of pictures of and need to transfer that into something that's legible for all of you, but haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. But it was a great day out, and we had multiple members of the ProSab board out there conducting public outreach. Boulder County Consortium of Cities, as maybe some folks on the board might recall, there was, I had it in my report last year, I believe, that the county was considering putting forward a set of model gun control laws. And these model laws are developed by, sorry, I'm just scrolling through my note here, developed by the Giffords Law Center and Everytown for Gun Safety. So these are large lobbying organizations that operate nationwide that Boulder County reach out to. And so the county is sort of asking for municipalities to decide whether or not they either want to also pass a series of gun control laws that relate to this model legislation that they're putting forward, or whether or not boards are interested in passing resolutions in support of the county in passing these laws. This is in the presentation that we were in last year at the consortium. It was very clear that this is, as you might expect, a hot button issue. There were many members of the public at that presentation who were extremely vociferous in their disagreement with what was happening and what people were saying, and in particular with the relationship that the county was establishing with Giffords Law Center and Everytown for Gun Safety. And there was indication made by the folks from Giffords and Everytown that they did expect that there would be legal ramifications to passing such laws, that this would be challenged in court. And so I do wish that I was able to write this up for you guys and have it in the report, but I'm not sure if obviously we're not going to be making any kind of actionable decisions now, but I do think this is something we have to at least decide not to do or to do as a board, because the rest of the county seems to be moving forward on this. And I didn't know if I know that Miranda is Attorney Madsen here?
I am here, yes.
And I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that, or if I got anything wrong on that.
I don't have anything to add except for the fact that I have received an email from attorneys asking what the status was for different municipalities within the Boulder County region.
Oh, and sorry, folks, I can at least tell you from my notes here what the laws that they want to pass are titled, but without any particular details at this point in time. But they want to pass prohibiting open carry, prohibiting carry in sensitive areas, which they define as schools and other such areas. They want to raise the age, increase the waiting period, ban assault weapons, large capacity magazines, and trigger activators, signage for firearms dealers. They want to pass more regulations on firearms dealers and ammunition sellers, and they want to ban ghost guns. So these are all. This is the set of model laws that these two non-governmental organizations have put together, and Boulder County wants to move forward with them. So I just wanted to make sure that we know about this and you guys know about this, so that we can decide how to proceed in the near future.
Thank you, Trustee Coombs-Esmail. Are you done, or have I interrupted you?
You have not. I am done.
All right, I just wanted to be sure. Trustee Corvallin.
Well, for the sake of time, everything is in my written report, and anyone can read it.
Thank you, Trustee Corvallin. We are going to have to operate on 1.5 speed today because it's a full agenda. So we'll move on to the action items, beginning with change of bank signers. Miranda, would you introduce?
Already ready for the other things. Yes, we need to change the signers on the bank account because former Mayor Larson, is no longer with us. And so we are proposing to have the board members who are on the board from the previous year. So Trustee Baumhover, Mayor Pro Tem Mahold, and Trustee Coombs-Ismail to now serve as the bank signers. And so we are looking for a motion to approve that. And so we can begin the paperwork to switch it over.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Public comment too.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Yes, you are correct. Public comment first. Does anyone want to speak on this issue? Hearing nothing? It's a rather dull issue, so I'm not surprised. Then, bringing it back to the board, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve Miranda Fisher, Mayor Pro Tem Tom Mahold, Trustee Eric Coombs Esmail, and Trustee Jonathan Baumhover to be signers on the citywide bank account.
Of course you can second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Macy, please take the vote.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
and Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very fine. So that is 7.1 and it is passed. We now move on to 7.2. I have announced this to the board, but I have been presented recently with a conflict of interest and therefore cannot proceed with this particular portion of our meeting. I'm going to turn the gavel over to Mayor Pro Tem Mahold, who will conduct this. I'm going to take my book outside and read until Miranda comes and notifies me we're moving on to 7.3. Mayor Pro Tem Mahold, please.
Okay, we move into a different part of the meeting. I'll open the hearing with this is a hearing on the application for the modification of a liquor license premises for Compound Corporation doing business as the Caribou Room at 5580 Peaks Drive, Nederland. The authority secretary has a few comments.
Not on me. Oh, you go ahead.
Actually, you need to call roll for the chair or for the.
That's right.
liquor
This is a
license
separate
authority.
meeting.
Yes.
Macy, can you take roll, please?
Of course. Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes, here.
Trustee Baumhover,
Here.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Here.
and Trustee Corvalon.
Here.
Thank you.
And I just want to offer clarification. So that vote now convenes you as the liquor license authority. I think there may have been a little confusion. So you're now officially entered into that role.
I'll put on a different hat.
Put on a different
Okay.
hat. Do you want me to go ahead then?
Please.
Great. So the application before you is a modification for a liquor license premise. And in your packet, I provided all copies of the pertinent application materials to all the members of this authority. The application was complete and contained all required documents and information. The application was also submitted to the state for approval, and the Caribou Room is in possession of their permanent modification of premise license with the state of Colorado. The town police department has no concerns with the issuance of this license, nor do any of the other town departments. A summary of the report and petitions are also in your packet in the AIM and was found to show that the application meets the needs and the desires of the neighborhood. Public notice of this hearing has been posted at the locations as well as published in the newspaper in accordance with state law, and the record of this hearing contains proof of such notice.
Thank you. Miranda, I enter the application as contained in the authority packet into the record of this hearing. And on the issue proving that there is a need and a desire for the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood for modification of the liquor license premises, the neighborhood was determined to be within the boundaries of the town. Does anyone present object to the boundaries of the neighborhood? The neighborhood is set by the town. Hearing none, we'll proceed to the public hearing. Peter Fiore, I think, is on the line. Do you have a presentation, Mr. Fiore?
Not a prepared presentation, just wanted to maybe make a couple points. We had an SRU agreement that went through unanimously through the Planning Commission and then also through the trustees, and they supported the SRU. This is something we need to do to complete the SRU process, so we'd be able to serve liquor on other parts of our property, and that just to keep in mind that the property is contained with a fence and that we would be able to have somebody at the gate to make sure that no alcohol left the premises. And I hope everyone votes yes. And I'm here for questions.
Anybody in the audience want to pose a question? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or opposition of the application? Wow, we may get out early. I've got a couple of questions, Peter.
Sure.
How do you keep alcohol out of the hands of minors as you move into the parking lot?
Well, we have roaming security. All of our servers are TIPS certified. They went through the TIPS class. And we you generally go over, we go heavy-handed with security. And of course, that being something that actually would jeopardize my company as well as the liquor license itself, it's something that we take incredibly seriously. There are underage people present, and we are always walking the lot with at least one or two security as well as the security at the gate. We do have problems occasionally with people bringing alcohol in, which we strongly encourage for obvious reasons that they don't do, because we are in the business of selling alcohol. That is really how we make our money, and the ticket sales is how the talent makes their money. So it's kind of crucial for us to be able to sell alcohol with our food, and we are going to have quite an extensive summer boutique cocktail menu to offer. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. We go heavy-handed when it comes to security, and I'm very particular, and we have many meetings about how we are going to do things like that. We have wristbands and things like that. If someone's not wearing the proper wristband and they seem to have an alcoholic drink in their hand, well, then they will be probably reprimanded first, and then if that happens again, they are 86th from the venue for at least a year.
Good. I appreciate your staff carding me. It's very flattering.
Hey, well, we got to make sure.
Thank you.
I love getting carded myself.
Do you want to make any closing comments?
No, just to really appreciate all you new folks, and I know how much work it is. I've sat on 3 of those BOTs, and I really appreciate you guys, and I wish you all the best of luck. And I think as Julian, the mayor had said with his exit speech, it really is a thankless job so often. But remember that the people in the behind the scenes who aren't showing up at every meeting really do appreciate the amount of work you guys put in. I personally know that amount of work, and it is rather staggering, and it's honorable. And you guys are really helping keep our community moving forward and getting a little bit more progressive. We appreciate it.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold, I just want to, before you close the hearing, I just want to note, so while there aren't any representatives speaking tonight in favor of this liquor license, I do just want to remind the Board of Trustees that the Caribou Room received over 100 letters of support, as well as over 100 signatures on their petition for support for their SRU hearing. And as a reminder, the SRU had to happen in order for the liquor to happen. They're definitely tied together. So I do want to just provide that there is support from the community for what the proposed use and what Peter Fiore is coming for.
We're talking about 6 states this summer, right, Peter?
I'm sorry?
6 states this summer?
No, 6 states this summer. We will be going over the sound permitting.
Okay, gotcha.
We have other dates that we'll be using the parking lot for, but we don't anticipate us breaking the sound ordinance at all during those events. And of course, we actually at this time, I guess at this time of COVID and where we are in COVID right now, we are really reliant on our private parties, and our private parties are generally very, very quiet, and it wouldn't affect the neighborhood whatsoever. It's usually people wanting to step outside and have a smoke of their cigarette or whatever they're smoking, and then actually I shouldn't have thrown that in there. Just smoking nicotine.
It's a
and
different
then-
hearing.
Yes, exactly. I'm sorry I did said that. No, but we will need to be serving alcohol for our private events, which is actually what's keeping us going currently. We have two, and next week we have two private events. So it's very nice for them to be able to step outside, especially during the summer season, to step outside when they're having their cigarette or whatever, and just going outside and talking. And sometimes we have the entire event is outside. We've done memorials and weddings and all sorts of things outside. So yeah, it's not just six events. The 6 events number on the SRU was about us doing a show that would probably go over the 72 decibel limit that we have on the regular portion of the sound ordinance. So only a few times will we go over that. We are going to be working very hard to keep the volume acceptable and steered north, so to
Great.
speak.
I would just want to say thanks from the community for keeping us as a community through the COVID era. It's been very helpful for our
Our
sanity.
pleasure. It also kept our sanity as well, and kept some paychecks going, which was really, really important. So it was
Right.
our pleasure to do it for sure. And hopefully this will be a good thing that comes out of that, one of the few.
Terrific. Do any members of the board have any questions before we proceed? Okay, then I will now close the public hearing.
Is there public
and-
comment?
Yeah, please do. Can you start the clock, Marta? Go right ahead.
Kathleen Chipai, 30-year resident, 18-year business owner. I want to speak in support of approving this expansion on the liquor license. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chipai. Anybody else? Okay, I now move to close the public hearing. And now that the public hearing is closed, I find the inhabitants of the neighborhood desire that the license to be modified. The license will meet all reasonable requirements of the neighborhood. All town and state laws have been met. And that, based on these findings, the authority approves the modification of the liquor license premises for Compound Corporation doing business as the Caribou Room, 55 Indian Peaks Drive, Nederland. And
I'll second that motion.
good. And can we, Macy, can you call the vote?
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail, Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Mahold.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, can somebody bring the mayor back?
And you need to adjourn as
Oh,
the liquor
oh,
license authority.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes. That is not a liquor license. That's a special review use. But later you will be a marijuana licensing authority.
Motion to adjourn liquor license authority.
I'll
Go ahead.
I'll second the motion.
Macy, call the vote, please.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
and Trustee Blakemore.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good luck.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. And now we.
Has that always been there, Jonathan?
It's always been here. Just never used it.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold, thank you very much for going 1.2 speed. So excellent. So we now move on to 1.3. Considering all right, and I have a script to follow. and I'm going to mess this up probably, but I'll ask your forgiveness if I do. Do I begin, Attorney Madsen, from here, or is there some other thing that needs to be done to move us into this mode?
Start beginning of this.
Start from
right?
here. All right. The public hearing is now open for the purpose of considering the special review use application related to Very Nice Brewing Company's outdoor eating and dining at 20 Lakeview Drive, Unit 112. Miranda, will you please present the report?
Yes. So before you tonight is that consideration of an SRU for outdoor eating, drinking at Very Nice Brewing Company, 20 Lakeview Drive, Unit 112. For Jeffrey and Susan Green. So what they are proposing or seeking approval for is to use the 2 parking spaces in front of their business to have some outdoor dining and eating space. They were approved under the temporary modification of premise during COVID to operate this and were successful in doing so for over 2 years, and they continue to have that temporary license. They are looking to, of course, make this permanent. That space would only be up on the weekends, and so it is something that can kind of be tear up, tear down situation. They would operate during their regular business hours. They don't anticipate any excessive noise levels or anything of that sort because it will be during their normal operating hours. One area of a concern that did come up when talking with town staff was from the police department about safety, and the Greens have worked very hard to come up with some creative ideas to really draw attention to that space so that it's a little bit more visible. I did share with you a picture of one of their posts, and then currently they have flags. And so in talking with Marshall Feinlevin, she does not have concerns given the current modifications that are in place. And so as town staff, we do recommend approval of this SRU.
Does anyone on the board have specific questions for town staff relating to this particular presentation?
Don't have questions, but I saw there were enough letters of support that we went from page 212 to 260.
Yes.
That's a lot of support.
Yes, absolutely.
I have a question. I don't know if it's for the staff or for the applicant.
For right now, staff, please, only staff questions.
Okay.
We'll move on to we'll grill the applicant later. All right. Is the applicant present? Please step forward, either or both applicants. Step forward. Please state your name and address for the record. And I have a question for you, Mr. Green. Is your attorney present?
No, I don't have an attorney.
Very fine. That just needed to be clarified.
Can we just ask Trustee Coombs Ismail if you can hear Jeff okay? I'm a little worried about that mic, Macy.
I can hear Jeff great.
You can? Okay, great.
Good. Mic problem solved. So would you like to add anything to the staff report?
Just to say what I basically said to the Planning Commission, we want to make sure that y'all know that we are part of this community and dedicated to serving the community. A few things that we're really proud of. Susan and I have donated over $25,000 to various local causes and people in need. We've we've kept our pricing. We have had one price change in 10 years. We recognize that not everyone's salaries have gone up with inflation, and that's something that was very important to us. I can't promise that we'll never have another price increase, but it is something that's very conscious in our mind to be able to keep serving Nederland residents. And thirdly, we basically take up any opportunity we can to cross-promote with other Nederland businesses. Example being our labels during COVID, where we put various local businesses on our labels instead of our regular labels to try and cross-promote, to try and support small business as a healthy institution in Nederland. So that's basically what we have done.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have questions for Mr. Green as regards his testimony?
I have a question for Mr. Green. So I'm looking at the SRU and it excludes live music in the outdoor area. However, there was live music on Sunday in the outdoor area, so I'm wondering why live music is listed as an exclusion.
I'm looking at our original application or our final application, and one of the things, it is bad wording, but basically under expected item 6, expected noise sources, it says music and chatter patrons will be common during operating hours. The live music is of the singer-songwriter variety and is held in the tap room. So anything that we have amplified or anybody that's invited to play at the Very Nice Brewing Company and scheduled and advertised and all that plays in the tap room in the corner. That being said, we've had people start up picking in those 2 parking spaces, and nothing's ever amplified. People have started picking their guitars there and banjos and fiddles and upright basses and all sorts of things, and we just don't stop them because they seem to really be enjoying themselves. So it's not something that we planned, and if we got any complaints, we would have no problem in asking people to stop. It's just we've never had any complaints. We're not in a neighborhood. We're in a shopping center, and we just see no reason to stop these people from playing. That being said, if it ever became a nuisance to anybody, we certainly would address it.
Yeah. When you're ready, if you seek to approve this tonight, you could make a motion with that condition that 2B5 be removed.
Or the other thing is you could change it to no amplified live music, if that's.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for bringing it up. Like I said, I'm sure it was my bad wording that led to that assumption.
Does anyone else on the board have a question for Mr. Green? Hearing none, we turn to public comment. I will remind everyone that this is a formal hearing, and so the people who speak will have 3 minutes to speak. There will not be clarifying questions. This is testimony. So I would ask, we're going to divide this up so that people in favor of the approval will speak first, people against the approval will speak next, and then people who are neutral but still would like to speak on this topic would be third. So I would ask members of the public to speak up if they are in favor of approving this SRU. Please state your name if you are or are not a resident of Nederland, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Christopher Kelly, a resident, 150 North Jefferson. Today I'm speaking as a resident. I am absolutely in favor of Jeff and Susan Green's application for an SRU. As an employee of the Mountain Man Outdoor Store, which is right next door, in the same complex to Very Nice, I've seen firsthand the positive impact that Very Nice has had on both the shopping center and on the community as a whole. Jeff and Susan really created and foster an open and friendly environment that people with kids, people with dogs, locals, and tourists can all enjoy in a clean and respectful way that doesn't hinder or negatively affect any other of the business or foot traffic in the shopping center. In fact, it does exactly the opposite. Very Nice draws business into the shopping center and also circulates and bolsters the nearby business. I've witnessed it firsthand, especially from out-of-towners. They're a little bit, it's the first time coming into town. They're a little pensive. If they sit down at Very Nice, they have a drink or two, they are more than willing to go back out into the stores and start shopping. Now I lost my place. But yeah, people who are enjoying a few beers and maybe some live music then wander into Mountain Man and other shops a little more incentivized to take their time and shop. I believe that with an outdoor space right in front of Very Nice, it will draw even more people than they already do from across the parking lot and even all the way from the covered bridge. families that are checking out the Carousel of Happiness or the train cars just might see the outdoor seating and want to know what's going on. And then go in, have a beer or two, and relax enough to want to explore more and spend more money. Apart from commerce, though, I also believe that Very Nice presents the right kind of environment that we'd want to draw people to. It's very much a communal place, a warm and friendly hub that really represents and celebrates Nederland. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to speak in favor of the SRU approval? Your name, if you're a resident, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Audrey Gebhardt. I own Decent Bagel at 95 East 1st Street in Nederland, and I'm speaking in favor of this. I think the more outside lively activity at restaurants and breweries in town, the better. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gephardt. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of approving the SRU? Hearing and seeing none, are there any members of the audience who would like to speak either online or in person against the approval of this SRU? Hearing and seeing none, are there any who would like to speak in a more neutral fashion regarding this SRU? I'm going to admit I'm not sure what that means. Hearing none, we will bring it back to the board. Does the applicant have any further comments or response to public testimony as given? Seeing no evidence of that. So the public hearing is now closed. Does the board wish to ask any clarifying questions of staff or of the applicant? All right. We are closing public hearing. Now the board may move on to discussion or deliberation on this application, or someone may offer a motion to approve the SRU.
I would like to make a motion.
A motion is made.
I move to approve the SRU application for Susan and Jeffrey Green, Very Nice Brewing Company, with the condition that provision 2B5 be stricken from the agreement.
A motion has been made to approve the SRU with a modification to section 2B5 that it be struck from the agreement. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Macy, will you please call the vote?
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it is approved. Susan and Jeff, thank you very much.
Taylor, there's also a resolution that needs a motion and approval.
I'm sorry. I've skipped something.
It's in the AIM. Yeah, so you just did the SRU, but we accompany it with a resolution.
Yeah, I will also move to approve Resolution 2022-26, approving Very Nice Brewing Company's SRU agreement with the conditions that we just stated.
Thank you for saving my bacon.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Macy?
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Trustee Blakemore.
Yes.
Thank you.
Both are approved, and we're done. The next one I'll do even better. Thank you very much, everyone. So we're moving on to the next item of the agenda, which is 7.5, special review use for Igadi. I'm going to begin with
It's Dino Moves is your next one.
7.4.
7.4.
Oh.
Yeah, Agatis go back to back.
Sorry, my printout was not doing what I was hoping it would do. Then, the next special review use. The public hearing is now open for the purpose of considering the special review use application related to Dino Moves, the climbing and movement space at 120 East 2nd Street. Miranda, will you please report?
Yes. So as you say, this is a consideration of a special review use related to an indoor climbing and movement space at 120 East 2nd Street. The applicant, which is the 120 East 2nd LLC, which is represented here by Carl, what they're proposing to do is an indoor bouldering and movement space in the larger of the two buildings. So you do have a residential and a commercial building on this parcel. It is located within neighborhood commercial zoning district, which is why this is coming before you as an SRU, because it is a kind of a commercial use that is not listed as a use by right. So therefore needs approval via SRU. The town staff do not have any concerns, but I do think it is important to note that in the previous SRU that Nederland Pet and Feed had, it did note that if this property were ever to change hands, that the utilities needed to be separated. So that there was a commercial and a residential. Carl is requesting that you consider allowing for some sort of payment arrangement, since PIF fees are very expensive. And so that would be something we'd want to discuss tonight, that if you were willing to approve that payment plan, we'd want to outline that in the SRU agreement. Otherwise, we would need to have immediate payment in order to move forward. And so I'll let him speak more about it, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. Otherwise, as staff, we have no concerns and we do recommend approval.
Thank you, Miranda. Does anyone on the board have questions for staff regarding this SRU?
This is Tanya. Why are they recommending they have two separate tap fees?
So code does require that you have two separate, for commercial and residential, that those lines need to be separated.
Because there
And
are
so
two
in order to
separate
be-
places that aren't related.
Exactly. And so in order to be in compliance with code, it would need to be separated, which is why it's in that SRU agreement from Nederland Pet and Feed that when this changed hands, that was going to be required.
Okay.
Now, I couldn't give you the exact cost because it's going to depend on the size of the PIF, but you are probably looking at, I think, $50,000 or more. I can't remember exactly what I quoted to Carl, but $50,000 plus. Which is why he would be looking for a payment plan. We're very open to that, but would like that to be memorialized in the SRU agreement if you were to agree.
So we are currently in the new rate that we had agreed on last year.
Correct. It would be at the new rate.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Any more questions?
I had a question, which was regarding, again, this is a section 2 of the SRU agreement question. Why? I think it's quite self-evident that the applicant must at all times meet all requirements prescribed by Netherlands Municipal Code, and I'm just wondering why noise, odor, and/or sound was specifically called out in this agreement, if there was a concern about that, and that's why it was stated. Or is it pro forma?
It's really pro forma.
Okay. Just wondering. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing and hearing none, we will turn this to the representative of Dino Moves. The applicant should step forward and speak. Let us know your side of this story. And I will ask the same question that I asked before. Do you have an attorney? And is your attorney present?
They are not.
Very fine. That being known, please proceed.
Hi, I'm Carl Fritchell. I'm one of the co-owners of Decent Bagel as well, and I'm very happy to be here before you, and I appreciate your consideration tonight. What we are proposing is to put in indoor bouldering and movement space where we can host various indoor activities, including supporting the climbing community, the aerial yoga community, indoor gymnastics, parkour, etc. So creating an indoor movement space that could be of value for community members of all descriptions. The topic that was brought up about the the utilities tap fees specifically, we are eager to become compliant as quickly as we can. The fees are quite high compared to the rest of our costs of doing business. And so we're requesting that you'd consider a payment plan for those fees so that we can come into compliance as quickly as possible without crippling a new business. The two things that we're asking you to consider, one would be to forego those fees until such time as we gain certificate of occupancy so that we can get open before we start paying them down. And secondly, that we have 18 months of equal payments to pay down whatever the total may be. The estimated total was at $47,750. We're hoping it doesn't exceed that. However, if it does, we're hopeful that those 18 months will be enough for us to get it paid off. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
And that brings us back to the board. Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. So I'm looking at your total occupancy and it says 30 persons. And I see that you have 7 parking places, which is what's required for the commercial and residential property. And I do see in your narrative that you discuss overflow parking in public lots on First Street. So I'm just wondering if you've thought about encouraging carpooling, busing, biking, walking.
One of the things we're most excited about is being right in downtown. So for a lot of Ned residents, we'll be available for a walking or biking distance. We absolutely would encourage carpooling. I haven't looked into any specific incentives for that. However, because of our limited parking area, we absolutely will want to promote efficient use of those spaces.
Does any other member of the board have a question?
I've got one or two. When do you intend to open, Carl, and how much construction has to be done to get it ready?
That's a great question. So to start with, we're hopeful to be able to get open sometime this summer. Our goal is to be able to get a certificate of occupancy sometime around end of July or beginning of August. The scope of construction that's required for us to get open would be mostly improvements to the bathroom facilities to bring us up to code compliance for a gym use. So we'll need to add an additional toilet or a water closet. We'll need to add a ADA accessible toilet, and we also need to put in a water fountain that would also be ADA accessible for a gym use. So those are all things that we're considering, and because there is some complication to building in this structure because it's a concrete floor, plumbing is a particular challenge, so those estimates are rough. We're hopeful we can get it done in that time frame, and we've already been given kind of a preliminary thumbs up from Safe Built, so our proposal for what to do with those facilities has been given the kind of initial go-ahead, so we're excited to apply for those permits as soon as possible and get the ball rolling quickly.
Excellent. That's all I have, Mayor.
Very fine. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I did notice in this SRU application, it said it's contingent upon you purchasing this property and there being a 30-day period that if we were to approve this tonight, you would have to be able to close on that property in 30 days or else have to re-get this. Is there any concern with closing in the next 30 days?
Not at this time. That was mainly written in because we were, for the Planning Commission, we were prior to closing, we're now post-closing, and we've successfully acquired the property.
Sweet. Just wanted to confirm you would not have to pay 2 fees.
Very fine. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, we will bring it to the public comment section. We're going to break this up in the same way. Since this is a formal hearing, you will have 3 minutes to speak. There will be no clarifying questions. So we will start with people who are speaking in favor of approving this SRU. Does anyone from the public wish to speak in favor of approving this SRU? Please step forward, state your name if you are a resident, and you have 3 minutes.
So I wasn't sure I was able to lend my support because I am not a resident. I live over in Gilpin, but my wife and I run the Very Nice Brewing Company, and I was at the special planning commission meeting when he presented there, and I just thought it was a very, very cool idea and a healthy idea for Nederland, and so I'd like to lend my support. I wanted to support Peter as well with the Caribou Room, but like I said, I didn't know if I was allowed to do that as a non-resident, so just wanted to clarify that as well. Thank you.
Let me quickly clarify that everyone who speaks may be resident or not. If you're in the general area, that's important. But if you're a resident, it's a little more important. Maybe we'll listen harder if you're a resident. I don't think so. Anyway, thank you, Jeff. That was exactly what the right thing to do. Please proceed. Do we have anyone else speaking in favor of this SRU?
Good evening, David Michael. I have a Gotti over in 92 East 1st Jefferson Street, and we will be speaking later, but I did also have the opportunity to listen to the applicant speak during the Planning Commission. The idea is impressive. Climbing gyms are wonderful uses. You know, it really, I think, ties into the comprehensive plan and allowing people who utilize, you know, the outdoors that Netherlands has to be able to train and to, you know, work out and climb during the winter months. This is something that's great for kids. I have a business here. I do live in Winter Park, and you know, our rec center put a climbing wall in, and my kids use it all the time. And then in the summer, take climbing lessons. It's been wonderful in their development, in their motor skills, and in their confidence as kids. I really do support this use, and I hope that you do approve it without conditions.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak in favor? And you may need to hit start. Please proceed.
Kathleen Chip-I, 30-year resident, East Magnolia, 18-year business owner. I'm in support of this business opening, but my comment is that I don't understand why we're in an SRU for this. He's zoned neighborhood commercial. This is commercial. I heard Miranda introduce this and say that this was not on the list of uses by right. There is no list of uses by right in the code. The code is actually a list of all of the things that are regulated because of how they're being used. Like I said in my last public comment, if it's not in the code, when I was speaking to the livestock feedlots that people seem concerned about, if it's not in the code, it's lawful. This is the United States of America. Now, I don't believe they need an SRU to do an indoor gym. I don't believe there should be any conditions whatsoever. I think it's a great idea. This goes back to the town and the Board of Trustees having to micromanage what businesses are allowed to open in town and how people operate their businesses. I can't believe the list of prove that you're not going to make the smell or noise. I mean, I don't even know what to say. It's an indoor gym facility. He has a use by right. It's neighborhood commercial. This is commercial. There is no list of acceptable commercial use by rights. It's a use by right for commercial activity unless the code says otherwise. We can't wrap our heads around that for some reason. And the other thing is, I don't understand why he's paying for another tap fee when those buildings and that water hookup should be grandfathered in. Is the town of Nederland expecting to go around to all these old buildings that are like this? From my understanding, the house was the first building built. It has sewer, and at the time, the other building was allowed to be built and the water is run. You cannot make all new purchasers of buildings and tell them after the fact of a sale or in starting of a sale that there's going to be a $50,000 or more additional water tap fee. It's insane. It's literally insane. So I dispute that we're in an SRU again, and I dispute the fact that these people have to pay any additional water tap fees or change anything in the system at all. That's my public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Chip-I. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of approving the SRU? And you may have to hit *6 if you're on a cell phone.
It's Ron Mitchell.
Please
I'm
proceed.
a part owner in the Hello? Ron Mitchell speaking. I'm
Yes,
a
Ron.
part owner across the street. I'm quite glad to see these people proposing this kind of use. I think will be a real asset to the neighborhood. I think that every business should be given the opportunity to have a flexible payment fee for their plant investment fee. They've agreed to this, and so they're willing to pay it. But 18 months is still very stiff. I think that if you were to give them a 60-month payment period, that additional help, you're not going to do anything with the money for that period of time. But if you gave them more time than what they've asked for, they would be able to put that additional money that they would have to pay into their improvements to perhaps be able to get open faster, and it would be a benefit to them. So I would like to just get consideration in excess of what they've asked for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Anyone else wishing to speak from the public in favor of the SRU approval? Hearing and seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. And I will ask if the applicant would like to respond to any of the comments that have been made, or if the applicant is satisfied that we may proceed without.
Only to say that I appreciate Ron's suggestion. I do understand that a longer payment period will allow us more capital to invest in the quality of the space and the services we could provide. I was only offering a conservative estimate to try to get something agreeable.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone on the board have any additional questions for the applicant before we turn to discussion?
I do.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold, proceed.
I'd like to address this to staff. Miranda, would you be open to something like that, 60 months as opposed to 18 months?
So Tom, let's discuss that in our discussion. Right now would be a time for a clarifying question if there is one. And if there isn't one, we will proceed to discussion.
Okay.
I do have a question for the applicant.
Please proceed.
And that is on whether or not, I guess, you've said you appreciate Ron Mitchell's comment. I just want to know, are you kind of formally requesting an extension to what you've proposed in the SRU as it currently is written? So are you asking for more than 18 months?
Given the tone in the room, yes.
Okay. And what can you put a number on that for us? How many months?
I think the proposal of 60 was an excellent proposal. And if the Board of Trustees is willing to consider it, I would certainly put that forward as a number.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, then we will close the public hearing and turn instead to a discussion. And this discussion may include a review of how many days we may wish to offer for paying off the PIF. It may involve possible suggestions as to additional amendments to the agreement. So I'm opening this up to the board, and I'm going to just call out by name. So Mayor Pro Tem Mahold, any thoughts or discussion?
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this come into town. I think in the howling dead of the winter, it'll be a nice place to go move. So I'm really happy for you, and I'm happy that you're taking a chance, just as you did over with the bagel, very nice bagel. So delighted to see businesses form in town. I've got a question for staff. Is it appropriate to ask now?
Sure. Yes.
About the 60, is that your question? So I think my only caution is precedent. So if you're going to approve 60, a time frame of 60, that's 5 years. And so I just want to encourage you to consider that. I mean, I think as town staff, we'd be looking to pull that back in quite a bit, maybe more like 2 to 3 years. Again, it's kind of like the parking thing, where if you're going to move forward, are you going to allow anyone who needs to pay PIFs to come forward and have 5 years to pay them? And then, of course, PIFs offset our infrastructure needs, and we may be looking at more urgent infrastructure needs. So if you allow for that longer payment, it may have a negative impact on our ability to do the increases that are needed at water and wastewater.
That's reasonable.
So, Trustee Blakemore, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of this use of the space. I think the rock climbing gym will be something really wonderful for our community. So with Miranda, I think going 18 months to 60 is a big jump. And I'd be concerned about not that this would happen to you, but maybe, you never know what will happen, but maybe you won't be in business for the full 5 years. And so we'd be carrying this over to the next owner or whatever. I'm wondering how common this is where someone is purchasing a property and they have to pay back tap fees?
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
Okay.
The issue of the transferring of property, PIF fees, RTAP fees, is a long-standing consequence of Netherlands' failure to plan for its future infrastructure needs. A lack of foresight going back probably 20 years that we have been trying to correct for the better part of a decade.
So I'd be in favor of choosing a midpoint between 18 months and 5 years.
Trustee Baumhofer.
I really like this idea of annualizing PIF fees. I actually would like to ask town staff if this is a potential that we could actually write an ordinance that would allow this to happen for all fees, from PIF fees to tap fees. We currently have a sewage tap fee that's, I believe, $18,000, a water tap fee that's $36,000.
So those are all, just want to clarify, those are all PIF fees. The taps are 1,000 and 1,001.
Okay, so these are the PIF fees, a sewage PIF fee and a water PIF fee. So when we're looking at these PIF fees, that means anybody trying to build a house in Netherlands, start a new business, in this case, is getting hit with an exorbitant fee that does not exist in any other community. This has also been from folks I talked with. We passed a ADU for accessory use dwellings, mother and you. The whole intent was to provide for affordable housing, but now we require that they have a PIF fee.
Jonathan,
So-
I totally back you on that.
So-
But I think it's another discussion.
The question I'm having is if we give this tonight, we would want to be mindful that we're moving straight into actually codifying this in ordinance so that the time frame we're discussing tonight should be, I would propose that we give options, that there is a year-long period, 2 years, with 3 years being the maximum. Basically looking at this as acknowledging as a council, these are exorbitant fees that are hindering our goals as a board, affordable housing, increasing basically the business in town, and it's hindering our business owners from being able to actually start good business. So my proposal would be that we offer up to 3 years for Dino Moves to be able to pay this PIF fees, and then we move right off the bat in the next few meetings into codifying a resolution and an ordinance that states all business owners, property owners can annualize their PIF fees, and of course work with town staff to make sure that this can be reasonable. But I believe that we would start to see a lot of movement on not only other businesses in town and commercial space being used, but we might also see some movements with ADUs and accessory use dwellings.
Trustee Baumhofer, would you be prepared to suggest a firm proposal, a specific number of months for this particular
For
case?
this particular, I would propose 36 months. I think the applicant gave us 18, 60 would be ideal. However, I would propose that we give them 36 months and maybe an incentive of $1,000 off the PIF fee if they pay it off in the 18 months. And that's how we encourage folks to pay it off when they can, but also give them the opportunity to save the money they're making to reinvest into their business.
Just to verify with staff,
Is that legal?
how much would have to change in the agreement if that were to be decided?
I'm going to defer to Attorney Madsen because I think we need to kind of to amend this SRU agreement before it was signed.
I don't think that the changes would be very extensive. If it was, clear in your motion as to what the desired request was, then I could make the changes in the SRU agreement, and I don't think it would need to come back before you for approval.
Let's move on to the rest of the trustees and come back to this because this is a good topic for discussion. Trustee Coombs Esmail.
Yeah, I'm happy enough with the idea of 36 months. I do think that the PIF fees are exorbitant, as others have said. They are the product of a rate study that was hard to argue with, considering the infrastructure needs that the town of Nederland has. So this has always been something that I've had some real conflict about, especially when we were passing those PIF fees. It felt like, still feels like the wrong thing to do, honestly. But the problem, the issue that I have, I guess, is that I don't know that we should. I don't think I would be in favor of any reduction in the fee for a specific case, in any circumstance, whether it was paid off earlier or not, because I think that needs to be addressed more holistically. I agree that it's too much, but I think that it's just shaky ground to try to reduce fees for early payment when early payment is actually late payment anyway, because as it stands now, we ask for it as a lump sum up front. So I'm not sure I'd be in favor of that, but I am absolutely in favor of the 36 months. That's a little, in fact, lower than I was going to suggest at 48, but I think 36 is good. It's double what the applicant initially asked for. So I think that would be fair enough in this particular circumstance. I think this is a fairly, I hope that this is a fairly rare circumstance, but honestly, there's so many properties in Nederland that have these kinds of issues that, I mean, it's going to come up again. It's going to come up again. And I think we need to have a better policy in place for structures that already exist that need to be separated into two separate uses because they were waived like earlier. Like it seems like in this particular case, the previous property owner got away with it, right? And so now the subsequent owner is having to bear the brunt of that decision that was made earlier. And so we're going to have this chain reaction decisions, these domino effect decisions coming before us frequently. Maybe we should have a policy specifically for those and leave new builds out of it and address new builds in a different way. So I'm happy enough with 36 months. I think that the rate should be what was passed because I think that's only proper. Even though I don't agree with the rate, I think that it just has to be. I don't think we have a choice there, and I'd be happy enough to vote alongside that kind of a resolution.
Thank you very much. Trustee Corvallin.
Yeah, I fully agree, especially with Eric about separating the buildings that already exist with new constructions. For a couple reasons. I mean, I disagree with the cost of this, but we were told that we had to do this because of all the upgrades we're going to have to do if we add any more usage to our system. And so any type of new construction is adding usage. And so it's basically paying into the system that's going to sustain their water and sewage. But with these pre-existing buildings, they're not really adding a ton more into our system. It's the same. I mean, maybe they're going to add a bathroom. I imagine they would, if there isn't already one there. But I feel like it's not adding any kind of burden to our water and waste system. And it seems ridiculous that we're having this huge PIF fee added to them. So I would be total in favor of giving it on a payment plan, 36 months or 5 years. And even in the future codifying that and then maybe separating a different discussion for new constructions that we should also help them, but there might be a different rate for that, a different timeline depending on what our town utilities really need to tell us, if what they can handle and if they need that money now to make those improvements or the rest of us are going to suffer. So that's my idea on this. Just to speed this up, yes, I want to approve this. I want to approve this for either 36 months or higher, whatever everybody else wants to do. And I think we're good to go. And also they wanted us to wait until they had their CO, and that's fine too, for me.
Thank you very much. So I think I'm going to nitpick some words here. I personally do not disagree with the rates because the math didn't lie. The math was very, very clear that we had no other options. I deeply regret the rates, but I agree with them because the math told us that. I am entirely in favor of this approval, and I'm entirely in favor of 36 months. I'm not feeling comfortable moving much beyond that. I'd like to throw it open to the board in case anyone on the board would like to comment further before we come to a conclusion.
I have one more comment.
Please proceed.
Speaking of the discount that Jonathan mentioned, if they pay early, well, I was just thinking if we're, paying, payments are done over 36 months versus 18 months, they're actually getting a discount if inflation continues to grow. So there's no interest that they're being charged. That's all I wanted to point out.
Yeah, I would just comment. I actually agree after listening, Trustee Combs Ismail, that would be a little bit too complicated, the rates of the rates. And then I also wanted to speak to what Mayor Taylor said, that while we all regret these rates and the cost, that the PIF fee here in this case actually is logical. If we look at the history of this building, it's going from what used to be Chris Perret's garage, a mechanic shop with maybe one person in it, to a feed store at best, having one or two employees, to being a full-time gym. Just looking by the petition, there was 80 folks that you managed to get signatures from, and I didn't recognize a lot of them, but I know everybody in town's going to love to have a spot they can go bouldering. I'll be there at least 3 days a week. So this building is going to get an excessive amount of use and be a very public area. So I think the PIF fee in this case, from a change of use perspective, will actually be adding quite a bit of use onto our sewer facilities. So for folks to think about why these PIF fees are included and brought in by town staff in these change of use, there is good reasons for this.
Thank you very much.
Could I ask one more question?
Please proceed.
And that is, if we could write into the agreement that this PIF fee has to be, I mean, it seems like the way to do it is to write into the agreement that the PIF fee has to be paid before the property can be sold again, in order to ensure that this doesn't happen a third time, because this is the second time now that this issue has come up with this property, at least that we know of. So is that something that would be appropriate for the agreement? Is that something that already would be in place if we put a payment plan structure in place? And I guess I'm asking town staff.
That was actually going to be a question of mine as to if the property was sold before the 36 months, what would you like to have happen with the PIF fees? So we could write it in. It sounds like your request, Trustee Coombs Ismail, would be to have the applicant pay any remainder of the balance of the PIF fee before the property is sold.
Indeed, I think that this is a benefit that we're providing, technically speaking, and that benefit, shouldn't be able to be passed on to the next property owner. This is for this particular business, for these particular property owners, that we are providing this benefit.
Do we actually have a legal tool to use besides to say property is non-transferable until PIF fee? And I really hate the idea of using non-transferable to. Is it possible that we could just carry the PIF on with the deed, and then any future owner buying the property would know in a title search that they are responsible for the remainder of the PIF?
Well, we could have a future property owner pay the remainder of the PIF. The other thing that could happen is if the applicant were to sell the property and somebody wants to buy it, the applicant would tell the purchaser that they need to pay the PIF fee that the applicant needs to pay in order to be able to sell the property.
Right. That's more what I was thinking, that there would be sort of basically something that would not completely inhibit the sale, but that if they were to sell it, that part of the agreement would have to be that the PIF fee is paid off one way or the other.
So then we would attach the PIF fee to the deed of the property and not the business owner. Is that correct?
Well, it would be part of the special review use agreement. So it would be, if the property were, if we put it in the special review use agreement, then, and the property owner, the applicant didn't pay before the sale, then we would be going after the applicant.
And that's to be negotiated between the current owner and the next owner, I would imagine.
That would be my suggestion.
Right.
It's not for us to solve.
No, it doesn't matter who pays the PIF fee from our end, however they resolve it, between each other. If it's still outstanding, would be fine. But that I don't like the idea of this benefit carrying over to a new owner that would have a different use that may not even be approved, right? Like potentially, if there was a new SRU for the property, right? It would make it so complicated. And so it seems to me that this should be resolved with this ownership.
I guess I'm not understanding your concern.
Trustee Coombs Esmail, I was going to say the same thing. I'm terribly sorry. I understand it's very early where you are. So
yes, indeed.
Okay. Could you summarize that again just for me and Trustee Baumhofer, please?
Well, it just seems to me that if there's an outstanding PIF fee and someone else buys the building and they want to change the use because they're not buying, and maybe they don't want it to be a bouldering gym anymore, they're going to have a whole different set of concerns, a whole different set of potential agreements that might need to be in place for their SRU. There might not even be two separate uses like it's going to be with this ownership. And so it seems to be too complicated to just transfer it over to a new use and a new owner. It should be resolved within this ownership of the property, one way or the other, that when it's sold, the PIF fee should be paid.
And it strikes me that there would be no legal reason, I'm staring at our attorney right now, there would be no legal reason why the remainder of the PIF fee could not be included in the sale.
I don't think that that's what Trustee Coombs Ismail is saying, is that, I mean, just like a purchaser might pay closing cost or something like that.
Right.
The purchaser could pay the PIF fee. But that would be a third-party transaction that the town wouldn't be involved in.
I was concerned there may be legal issues there. Yes. Okay. So it sounds like the proposal is that we allow 36 months to pay the PIF. And if the property should sell before then, we will demand immediate payment before the transaction completes.
That is what I'm proposing.
Yes.
All right. Do I hear any more discussion, or do I hear, now let me verify, we are going to have a motion to approve the agreement, perhaps with amendments? And then we approve the resolution. Is that the process?
Did you close the public hearing? I don't recall if that.
I closed the public hearing, and we are now discussing among ourselves.
You can have a motion to approve the SRU agreement with amendments. Yes.
With amendments. And then that is followed by an approval of the resolution.
Yes.
Very fine.
Is it possible, Attorney Madsen, though, for the applicant to just comment on what is being proposed here, and if he agrees to this current, since it's been adjusted a little bit since the 60 months?
Do we have leeway to do that?
Yes.
Then I will call upon the applicant to comment on what we have just discussed.
Thank you for your patience. Sorry, I just have a pinched nerve in my spine. Um, First of all, I would say I am amenable to the new timeline. As far as 36 months goes, I would hope that you'd also still be willing to consider the certificate of occupancy caveat. That is somewhat important to us. The other thing I would say, just in response to Trustee Coombs Ismail's commentary, is the previous SRU application was written in such a way that the problem of this payment was pushed off onto the next owner. And I understand that he's trying to solve that problem. However, if a payment plan is agreed upon, the total isn't changing, the fees are the same no matter what. So if that payment plan were to be transferred to another owner, I don't see why that would be problematic. However, if it is a caveat that's requisite for me to pass through this approval, I am perfectly willing to relent on that concern.
Thank you very much. Does staff have any other issues for the applicant?
No, and we don't have concerns with that certificate of occupancy being added in.
Okay.
So add that to your motion if that's the desire of the board.
And for clarification, that is that the 36 months begins once they have their CO, correct? Okay.
Very fine.
I think that's already in their proposal.
Right. So do we have any further discussion, or do we have a motion to approve the SRU agreement with amendments?
I would like to make a motion.
Please do.
I move to approve the SRU application for 120 East 2nd LLC Dyna Moves with the following conditions, and that is that a payment plan be established for 36 months upon receipt of a certificate of occupancy for the pit fees that are required to bring the property into compliance, and that those pit fees should be paid in full if at any time during that 36 months the property is sold to a new owner.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the SRU agreement with amendments. Macy, will you please take the vote?
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
and Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you.
The SRU agreement is approved. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I move to approve Resolution 2022-27 approving 120 East 2nd LLC's SRU agreement with the conditions as stated previously.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Macy, please call the vote.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Mayor Taylor.
Yes,
Thank you.
and it is approved. Good luck. Dino moves. I would like to propose a 5-minute break. Let's all be back here by 9:07.
You mean 407?
Except at 4:07.
So as Mayor Taylor indicated, this is an SRU for a marijuana product manufacturing facility at 92 East First Street. I want to offer first some clarification on terminology. The Town of Nederland Municipal Code refers to this as marijuana product manufacturing. The applicant does also refer to this as marijuana infused products.
Terribly sorry.
They're the same
I
thing.
realized I had misspoken as I was reading.
No, you did not. You spoke it. You read it as it should be in the code. We're good.
Okay.
We're good. I think we're good. So currently, Gotti operates at 150 North Jefferson, Unit B3 and B7. So they are looking to move their location, which includes their retail marijuana. Retail marijuana is used by right in the Central Business District. So all you are looking at tonight is that marijuana product manufacturing license. What they are proposing is to have their retail floor on the top floor and their product manufacturing on the second. In their narrative, they go over the different types of marijuana infused products that they would be providing and selling within their store. As town staff, there were some concerns with regards to the youth. There's not much that a Gotti can do to control that, but it was noted, and they did provide kind of a thorough response in how they definitely deter from underage use. And then there was some question about the way in which they do the product manufacturing and the impact that might have on our wastewater system, given the way in which they perform that, there are no further concerns. So as town staff, we do recommend approving this application.
Thank you very much. Do any trustees have any questions of town staff regarding the presentation we just heard or what has been written in the packet?
I do have a question for Miranda. You said that the retail marijuana is a right by use. However, I see that we're going through a procedure to change location.
Correct. You'll do that under when you're convened as the marijuana licensing authority. You will then, if this is approved, you will then do the change of location because there are only 4 licenses available for retail marijuana. So we need to make sure we're moving that location. And you still, as the marijuana board, have to approve this as a licensure. So it's kind of like the Caribou Room where you're doing the SRU for what this use is, and then you'll switch to the marijuana licensing piece.
Okay, thanks.
Do any other trustees have questions for staff?
One more question on what you just said, Miranda. Do we have a limit? Did we decide on a limit before in the previous board?
Yes. So the previous board, there was a moratorium, and then the final decision was 4 locations, which is why we need to do a change of location here. Otherwise, the alternative would be kind of a forfeiture of license. And so we are looking to do, as a part of your marijuana licensing hearing, the actual just change to allow a Gotti to continue to operate their one of those licenses, just at a different location.
Right. And then is the square footage for the retail operation changing substantially from?
So I'll have to let the applicant speak to the upstairs versus downstairs square footage. I just in the aim have the total square footage of the building. So I will let the applicant speak to that.
Any other questions for staff from the trustees? Hearing none, I will now turn it over to the applicant. I will have to ask the applicant if their attorney is present and then allow the applicant to speak, hopefully illuminating us further after hearing Miranda's report. It is over to you.
Good evening. David Michael. I represent Gotti. I am general counsel for Gotti, therefore I am an attorney, but I am not privately retained. I've been with the company since we founded it. Founded the company in 2014. We started our first location up in Tabernash, Colorado, where I lived at the time, still live in Winter Park. And it's a really cool location. What we wanted to do was we really wanted people to not look at marijuana as a drug, but see it as the plant that it is. So we created a facility up there, and when you walk in, there's 3 windows, one that looks into our clone room, 2 into our veg room, and then there's a door to your left and a door to your right. The door to our right goes to a 20 by 10 observation room where you can see a couple of 100 plants and 2 stages of flower, and the door to the left goes to our dispensary where we have off of that our kitchen, commercial kitchen, and we have a window into that so that the public can really kind of see how these products are created, to demystify them and take away some of the stigma. That was our origin. We've grown. It's been really an incredible ride. We currently have 170 employees. Of the 20 that started with us, 15 are still there. We have 8 operating retail locations, and our 9th is scheduled to open with some cost overruns. It should have been open this month, but we're scheduled to open in July. And I'm sorry, waiting on production materials and that kind of stuff. It's been a slog, but we're opening in Lyons in July, and that will be our 9th store. We had a really good year when COVID hit because everybody was staying home and purchasing more. So in January 1st, 2021, every single one of our employees got health insurance, salaried, fully paid, health, vision, dental. If you're hourly, and this is, not, you don't pay 100%, we pay 50% of every hourly employee health, vision, dental. And we felt that with the pandemic going on, it was something that, we didn't want to make people be there for 3 months or do anything. We just wanted, when people are working for us, we wanted them to feel like we had their backs so they'd have ours. And retention's been great. Not only has retention been great, we have a perfect compliance record. We've been operating in Netherlands since 2018. Every year, we help out with, we put money into and have a booth at Frozen Dead Guy Days. We just organized a benefit concert for the Marshall Fire down in Boulder. We have stores in Louisville, Lafayette. Like I said, the one opening in Lyons. We got a mix of mountain as well, Tabernash and Granby and Central City, as well as Idaho Springs. We've really started with just a couple of us, and it's really become something that we couldn't have ever imagined. And the humbling and honoring part of that is that our employees really feel like they're part of something. And I think that when I speak to our employees, what always just I can't tell you how sentimental it makes me, is that I feel like their identity is part of the company. Our employees here in Netherlands walk to work. We're not moving too far. And while we should not be talking about the retail use because that's a subject for later, when we looked at this property, we thought what we're going to do with it. We really liked the retail space, and we really wanted to open up a MIP, which is a marijuana infused product facility. In that facility, our intention is to produce a line of beverages, as well as coffee creamer, a can of butter that people can cook with, and a new line of gummies. We have current set of gummies that we make. We've got some new technology that we think is going to deal with some of the issues that edibles can have with it's more fast acting than 15 to 20 minutes, so that people aren't waiting 2 hours and taking a second dose before they should. And, especially inexperienced people and we think that this is going to be a great product that we're going to produce here. We're going to sell in this store, which has some, environmental benefits of producing and selling at the same site. We'll also be distributing to our other stores. We don't tend to wholesale. Not saying that we wouldn't, or want to be prohibited from doing so, but everything we produce, we sell in-house. I think part of the reason we've been successful is we've tried to analogize ourselves to companies that we like, Trader Joe's being one from the retail perspective. And what we really try and do is offer our clientele options, but not too many, 2 to 3, maybe 4, but no more. And in that, we'll usually have hopefully an Agati product, and as well as other products that they know is curated for price and quality. And it's something that they know that they're going to walk out feeling good. They know that the staff is going to be happy, which is always my experience when I walk into a Trader Joe's. And it's going to be something that is a quick, easy experience. But if you want some help, if you want to ask questions, you're going to get your ear talked off by our bud tenders, trying to help you figure out what's best for you. We have extensive training that we utilize. Everybody who comes on board, takes a class that talks about not only the history of the company, but as well compliance issues. I've helped create that content. We do extensive training on spotting fake IDs and how to make sure that we're serving the correct adult population and not minors. And we've never, like I said, had a compliance issue. This particular use, this building is perfectly designed for what we intend. In fact, over-designed. And that's one of the issues, with this building is that it's been sitting there for over a year, in part because it was built really well for a use that's not going to take place. There's no cultivation that happened there, and the building's going to be expensive, and it takes a certain type of use to be able to substantiate the rents. And we think that we know we can satisfy that use. It takes a building that hasn't been used, puts a use in it. We're leaving a building in the central business district, but I showed up before the meeting to meet Risham, who has Kathmandu out there, to tour 2 hairdressers and a massage therapist that want to also do that and acupuncture in that space. This is not just taking up a space, it's opening up another space that's less expensive in terms of rent for other businesses and entrepreneurs to start in Nederland. We think that it is going to help out the community. We think it fits within the comprehensive plan, providing a number of jobs, and they're not just service-oriented jobs. They're also jobs where people get to create. The prior use there, the apothecary, it was a little bit more, I think, heavy in terms of traffic because they had people parking there for classes, consultations. I believe there was a midwife there at one point, as opposed to just the store. And then they did the same production of herbal remedies downstairs, which is exactly what we're doing. And in the apothecary where they sold those products, we're doing the same thing. We just put the products behind the sales counter and dispense them as opposed to letting people walk around. So we really don't see any additional impacts than the use that was already there and approved by this town board in a special use review permit back in 2015. We think it's a logical adaptation of the building. It was originally intended to be a medical marijuana facility, but then became one that utilized CBD and other botanicals. And we're staying right in line with that. The commercial kitchen is less noxious than most of the other commercial kitchens up along First Street because we're not frying things. We're not using grease and oil in the products that we intend to make there. And in fact, there really are no marijuana products where you utilize grease or oil and then infuse it because you're not serving food hot immediately for eating. You're packaging it. And so all of these products are not they're not offensive uses. I know we did receive a number of letters of support. We walked up and down First Street, speaking to not only the businesses, but to residential as well, and knocked on doors and said, hey, we are here. We'd like to come to your neighborhood. Are there any questions that you have for us? We received overwhelming support from everybody we spoke to. I understand the Bagel Street across, issued a letter. I also understand that, that their concerns, I don't believe are justified because the mechanical systems that are put in place have carbon filtration and there hasn't been odor issues in the past. And according to our special use review agreement, we need to maintain those mechanical systems. And if there is an odor, we need to correct it. And, we're not saying that we're perfect. And I don't believe that what makes a good business person is not making a mistake. We might. It's how you handle it. And when you receive notice that you make a mistake, you say, you apologize and you correct it. And that's why we've been successful as a business, not because we're perfect, not because we're flawless, but because we have an attention to detail. And when we don't meet our own standards, we're the first one to acknowledge it and correct it. We think that this is going to be something that's going to be good for the community. Where we are right now is moving to a one-way street, which is going to be difficult for customers to reach us. Those are going to cause traffic issues, potentially. That's partly why we started looking for another location. This location, while it is a one-way street, it's First Street. And it's a different type of location. And people who park there to go to the restaurants will have an opportunity to make their purchase there and not make their purchase in another community before they leave, which is taxes and benefits to this community and jobs. Now, initially, actually, I'm going to save that for the next component. The next issue I want to talk about and address before we get into the Q&A and portion and trustee comments is parking. There, based on the Planning Commission meeting, it was brought to our attention slightly before that we had to acquire parking. Obviously, this is an issue that the Board of Trustees is trying to wrestle with. First of all, let me say this. Your staff is phenomenal. They've been incredibly helpful throughout this process. And I apologize to them tonight because I sort of ambushed them. Not intentionally, but I had an opportunity just before we got here to look at title work for the property. And it's not fair to ask your town attorney to opine on whether we have parking spaces behind the building or not. But we did find some title work that would indicate that. And so we want to get our approvals tonight because we're not purchasing this. Our landlord in Granby is purchasing, we're a good tenant, is purchasing this for us. And because they like us and, you know, it's a good deal for them and it's a good deal for us and leasing it back to them. So that's kind of why I just got my hands on this title work and really thought to look at that. You know, that this has to close and we need to make sure that our current landlord has sufficient notice to get another tenant in there. It's important to us. I'm giving her half the security deposit. We're not leaving early, but it was something where I wanted to make sure that she didn't get stuck because she's been accommodating as we've been looking for properties. And the end result is we think we have 6 parking spaces, which is what the Planning Commission we determined would be necessary for the building in Outlot A. And we think it was reserved in the dedication in the subdivision plat that was recorded. I also believe that what's also kind of given me some trouble is that the prior applicant who had a special use review and operating in the space, I don't think they paid for parking. In fact, I know they didn't. And if they had, it should be going to us. But they have parking spaces shown on Outlot A, which is in your packets, I believe, under our special SRU plan. And we think that this satisfies it. To the extent that it doesn't, we'd ask for an exemption. We understand that those have been given to 2 other businesses, Kathmandu and Busey Barbecue or Busey Brews. And we think that it's appropriate to apply it for us. To the extent that you're not willing to grant us an exemption, we have opportunities to acquire 6 spaces from neighboring landowners. To the extent we're unable to do that, we'll pay the money. So what I'm trying to say is we want our approval tonight, even though we understand that there's some there's some, it's a little dubious as to how, you know, we're going to get that parking. I'm going to go away from dubious as well. We're not, you know, there's 4 options for us to have parking. I think we should have those before we begin operations. And I would ask that if an exemption could be granted, we're settled. If not, I would like to, you know, allow town staff to look over and determine whether they feel that we have the town, as well as town attorney, that we have the parking required. And if that's not sufficient, we'll acquire it.
Mayor Taylor, can I just jump in on that really quick? And thank you for bringing it up because I didn't in my presentation. One thing I do want to make sure the Board of Trustees is aware is the Planning Commission, who's been tasked with parking in the CBD, do plan to bring forward to you a request for a moratorium on the parking requirements in the CBD. So while that's not before you tonight, and I understand that it is coming down the pipeline, that recommendation, which kind of then ties into a bit of this request for a variance, because that is what they'll be looking to.
And it is correct that we have recognized this as an issue and we have given variances, recognizing that we do not have a good current plan and that a longer term plan is coming to us. So yes, I completely understand. So do any trustees have any questions for Mr. Michael?
Yeah, we're still on the manufacturing part. You're going to be putting in a bottling line, I presume, for the.
Yes, and we might also do a canning line. The bottling line is a little bit easier to operate, and will probably be first, but we are considering a canning line as well, depending upon how our success goes with the bottom line.
Great. And then, so you have enough electrical service to run all this?
There's so much electrical service in
Yeah,
that
it's pretty
building.
incredible.
It was created for cultivation using 1150 watt lights was the design. We're going to use a fraction of that for what we're looking to do.
Okay. And then because you're manufacturing, I presume you're going to have to transport products to your other stores. Do you use trucks or what comes
We use
in?
a van.
Okay.
And, you know, I don't have a specific logistic plan that I can, that I'm really would desire to commit to. But I can tell you what, we're going to have a lot less Cisco trucks pulling up and going into our commercial kitchen than what's going on with the other commercial kitchens up and down First Street.
Good.
Secondarily, we already have a van that comes to our store to supply our store.
Yeah.
It comes usually about once a week. It will do the same now. And with pulling the product out, I think our initial intent is to take it once a week and then distribute it around to the other stores after it comes here. And it actually works out well. Our van starts in Tabernash, can come right through Idaho Springs, Central City, and then up to Nederland, and then down to our other stores and back up. So it works out quite well from a logistics perspective.
Great.
And we'll have some deliveries of products, but I don't think that it will be anything more intense than your average retail business, probably less. And I don't think it'll be any more intense because we don't get in things from a bunch of different wholesalers. They all come into our Tabernash location and then go out from there to our other locations.
Great. And then how many jobs do you anticipate creating?
You know, we'll see how well we do. We're currently using 3 employees at the store, but we do intend to increase hours. I would expect that we would probably get up to as many as 5 to 6, but, no more than 3 at a time. And more oftentimes will be 2 at a time that are there. In the commercial kitchen, we're probably going to have about 3 employees would be what I expect, possibly 4, but 3 is a good indication for that size in terms of the products we'll be creating.
Okay, excellent. That's all.
And they'll be 9 to 5.
Any other questions from the trustees?
You mentioned a letter from Decent Bagel about odor. I haven't seen that. Could you just address that?
Opposition, as well as I think 2 emails, but they both indicated they were affiliated with the bagel company. And then we had 10 letters of support as well. The letters of support were from businesses up and down First Street.
Okay. Is a decent one in the packet too?
Yeah, there it's on page 344.
I don't know how I missed that.
Right? Karen, not in this 504-page packet?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to draw attention to the negative in the packet, but it is there, and I certainly wanted to address it.
Okay. And what was their concern? It was with odor? Is that?
There was a smattering of concerns.
Big list. Okay, I'll read
Look,
that.
I mean, I don't mean to cast dispersions, but one of them was that other local businesses would like to use it. My understanding is they put an offer in on it, and that offer was not sufficient. And there might be motivation to not see this go through so that the price might drop. But I think that
I think speculation should probably be kept to a minimum.
I understand.
I apologize that I hadn't, somehow I missed this letter and maybe some other ones around it. And then I have a question about parking and the Planning Commission, but maybe that's better for staff. And
I certainly would be happy to answer it along with staff, and I
So-
can provide whatever information we can.
Okay, so I'm looking at the evaluating criteria. I don't see anything in here about parking. So why are we talking about parking?
So in the aim, we outlined that, per the count in code, they're going to need 6 spaces. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to the SRU, the aim. And so there are 4 spaces located in front of the building, but they are on town right of way. And so the discussion is the need to either currently pay into the commercial parking fund or find parking within 300 feet. The request is for that variance. But let me get to it unless someone gets to it faster than me.
So the apothecary did not need that many, was given a variance?
So that's actually what David was bringing up, is that it appears in the title work. There is some language about how parking was allowed on the town-owned parcel, which is southwest of this parcel. It's in between 92 and Busey Brews. And so that's something that Attorney Madsen, we would need a little bit more time to look into, because it is possible that there may be title work showing that they do in fact can use town parcel for parking.
Yeah.
But we don't have enough time to look into that right now. That's the challenge.
I must have missed some things in this packet. If this came before the Planning Commission?
This did come before the Planning Commission. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to do a little bit of reading here.
And they did also approve unanimously this, our request. With regard to parking, while I understand that, and I think it's appropriate to reserve an opportunity for council to do more than just a cursory review of this, at reception number 01661719, recorded December 4th, 96. It does state that Outlot A, which is the space behind our property, is to be used as private open space and common landscaping, drainage, and off-street parking improvements to serve the commercial businesses to be constructed on lots 1, 2, and 3, and possibly in the future 4. We are on lot 3. And then in the special use review packet that was approved for Zufante, they were required under section 2B, it said off-street parking spaces as shown on the approved site plan, which are the same spaces that we have shown, shall be constructed and delineated prior to commencement of operations. All construction of parking must be undertaken by the applicant in collaboration with the town public works manager. The owner will construct parking space in the adjacent town-owned property known as Outlot A of the upstream subdivision as shown on the approved site plan and as indicated in Note A on the attached Exhibit C. And they do show 8 parking spaces, 2 of which are reserved to the residential space that are behind, 6 for us, for their particular use. We think it's appropriate to use that. Again, your staff has not had sufficient time to do the appropriate analysis on this. That's, was my oversight in not discovering this. Honestly, I'm not sitting down having a barbecue at Busey Brews. So, and it brought to their attention during the break.
Walking your property, the back, the area behind certainly does look like it could accommodate that. I would just say I walked the property this weekend and I'm feeling reasonably comfortable.
Right. I think
with
that's town-owned property. And so I think that's why we need to look at this title work. Because typically under current code, there would have to be payment into the commercial parking fund to use town-owned property for parking. So that's why we need a little time for that.
In this instance, the question would be whether this plat that I recited to you, which dedicates Outlot A to the town, previously was privately owned, whether it reserved those parking spaces for those other lots within the subdivision or not.
Right.
We would say it does, but your staff appropriately wants to review that. On the other hand, should the Board of Trustees desire, you could grant an exception tonight, and then it's a moot point. Kathmandu added residential spaces, residential units above, and kept the same commercial, received it. Busey Brews received it. I don't know the exact reasons why, but it seems as though
they would be the same reasons we would use for you if we were to do that.
And we'd ask to be treated equally to those.
Let me move to other trustees who may have questions for Mr. Michael. Any other trustees with questions?
Just with this is Tanya, relation to the odors from all the cooking and the baking and whatnot, the concerns of the neighbors. Why are you so confident that it won't emanate smells?
Well, we've operated numerous facilities before This was designed to accommodate a cultivation, was approved by the Board of Trustees and your staff for that exact purpose. There's carbon filtration in there in the filters. I'm very confident that carbon filtration would remove any smell, not to mention the fact that when you've been in a commercial kitchen, it doesn't smell. I mean, we're not cold. The smells that typically emanate from facilities are through harvest and through trimming and during cure. This will not be occurring here. When you look at what we'll be producing, typically we're going to be using distillate, where we use a distillation process to distill an extraction, and you boil off all of the terpenes, which create odor and smell. It's mostly THC, which is odorless and tasteless, and that's why we use it in our edibles. To the extent that we're not using it, we're not creating it on site, and we're not doing any baking. The uses that we will be doing, it's not going to be, we make gummies, they don't smell. So I'm extremely confident that there won't be an issue. Our retail spaces also don't create odor. We're not doing anything with the marijuana. It's packaged. So we're not really manipulating it or causing it to exude odors. We're merely just putting it into packages, deli style, and giving it to our customers. So based on my experience, and it is extensive, I've been an attorney in the space since 2009, as well as an operator since 2015. I see no reason why this is going to produce smell, and we haven't had a single complaint about our retail facility currently. So those are the basis of my confidence and my experience. And if there is an issue, the one thing I can assure you is that will be addressed, and will be addressed immediately.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from trustees for the applicant? Hearing none, we now turn to public comment. Since this is a formal review, the comments are going to be essentially formal testimony. So each person who would like to speak in favor of our approving this SRU, please step forward or get our attention. Give us your name, and if you are a resident, and you have 3 minutes, please.
I am Jimmy Keith, and I am not a resident currently. I happen to be the band that brought the train cars up 50 years ago this year. I'm speaking in favor of the applicant. The owners of the property would love to have the property sold. It's been sitting a long time. This is the correct use, we feel. Yes, other people in town have inquired about purchasing it, but not at a figure that would recoup anything that the sellers have invested in the property. These folks have been very zealous in their attempt to go forward, and so we would just hope that this might get approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Remember *6 if you're on a cell phone. I see a local person stepping forward. Please give us your name if you're a resident or not, and you have 3 minutes.
Kayla Evans, 1250 Eldora Road. I don't want this to sound like I am not in favor of this project, but Nederland is known as Little Drug Mountain Hippie Town, and the one element that I wish, having listened to the testimony for previous people this evening that are carrying the burden of what came with the property being placed upon them, I don't know if this is proper or whatever, but the one thing that really bothers me about, I bet everybody in this room, maybe not you, our attorney, but has at one time or another consumed the product that these people are talking about making. So that's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a point of view that we do not put as much effort as a community into letting the people that are young in our community know that they have to wait till a certain age and the detrimental effects on a young brain that happens. It's not your responsibility, but I wish the town or all of the marijuana dispensaries in the town or somehow the parents in this town can be more educated, you know, when you used to steal a little
Kayla, I'm
bit.
going to try to draw you in here a moment.
Yes, please do.
The purpose at this point
Is to either
indicate whether you are for or against.
Then I would
moving a little off.
couch it by saying I am for it with the hope that there is an active element of education for the younger people in this community from all of the dispensaries and all of the marijuana people in our town that I feel is lacking. And I hope that
Thank you very
you
much.
understand what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak in favor of approving this SRU?
I'd like to speak.
Please proceed.
Kathleen Chipeye, a 30-year resident, 18-year business owner. I'm in support of approval. I'm also in support of equal treatment under the law. And I'm very interested in the paperwork that's attached to this in regard to parking, because that really would be interesting. But I want to also let the owner know that there have been 5 ordinances in the town's history that have passed that all comment on central business district. And in all 5 of those, up until last year, the CBD is exempt from any parking requirements of any kind. The building on the lots in the CBD, you're allowed to build to the property line in all directions, which means there's going to be no parking provided. And until last year, the CBD was exempt from meeting any parking requirements at all. Now, in this packet, reviewing your parking situation, which I got interested in 10 years ago because I was told I needed 35 parking spaces for a dispensary in the Decent Bagel building. But I want you to know also that the Kind Castle didn't have to get a variance or anything. They have 0 parking that doesn't encroach on town property. And I have an email correspondence from the town saying they'll give them an occupation certificate as long as they pay a one-time only $250 encroachment fee. And then 3 hours later, town wrote them and said, forget about the $250. You can get your occupancy certificate without any parking that's owned by you or leased. They didn't. The other thing is don't pay into the parking fund, because there's over $100,000 missing from the parking fund, and the parking fund doesn't end up going to create parking spaces by the town of Nederland.
Topic, which is speaking in favor of the.
I'm in favor of the guy getting equal treatment under the law compared to what other cannabis businesses, be it the Kind Castle got, which is no parking requirements whatsoever. Now, it sounds to me like this guy actually has paperwork that shows that there is parking, which is funny. But the bottom line is I'm for passage with equal treatment. He should not be paying into the parking fund, and nor should he even be having to request a variance. The town very first changed the code last year to require parking where
really
the rest
talking
is
about
in conflict with the
parking
whole
code
rest
at
of the
this
code
point,
and the whole
are we not?
history of the code and the parking requirements in the CBD
As opposed to
since
whether or
the
not we
code
should
was
approve
created.
this?
So, I don't want the guy to get ripped off. Simple as that. He shouldn't have to pay a penny into the parking code or worry about anything, and he should be able to open just like the Kind Castle was allowed.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the public wish to speak on approval of this SRU? Name, are you a resident? And 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Kelly, resident, 150 North Jefferson. I'm actually right above Agati where they are now. And saying that, there is no odor. Also, just speaking from a little bit of experience, my wife did work in a commercial kitchen for a marijuana product manufacturer, and there was no odor. There was no odor around. So I am absolutely in favor. I think, you know, I love this town, and it does suck to see a very nice new building with a for sale sign out front. That being said, though, just 2 comments. I don't know enough about the building, but about the business of marijuana manufacturing. The only concerns that did cost this previous company a lot of money that my wife worked for was they did not have a proper grease trap in the building, and the issue with the homeless getting into their waste dumpster in the back. And those are the only 2 things I wanted to mention.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Would anyone else from the public like to speak in favor of approving the Agati SRU?
It's Ron Mitchell. I own the property across the street. I think these folks have done their homework almost to excess. I'm very much in favor of their business. They're very professional. They have an excellent record. They've been in town in their current location with absolutely no complaints. And so I think there are probably a lot of others who approve. They're just not online tonight. And I wanted that to be known. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Anyone else? Star 6 if you would like to speak in favor of approving this agreement. Hearing nothing, I am going to suggest that we pause for a moment, and I'm going to ask if anyone can make a motion, if anyone is willing to make a motion to extend this meeting to 10:30.
So moved.
Second.
Macy, please call the vote.
Trustee Coombs Ismail? Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover?
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore?
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Mahold?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so we're extended to 10:30. Now we will turn to any members of the public who would like to speak against approval of this SRU. Star 6 if you're on a cell phone, get our attention some way. I'm watching Miranda, who will let me know if anyone is interested in speaking against this SRU.
David Seitz.
Please proceed. Mr. Seitz.
This is David Seitz. I live at 101 East 2nd Street, and I missed my chance to speak in favor of it, but I do support them being able to go ahead with their business plan. And I also support the elimination of parking requirements in the central business district. We're so far off of any fair valuation on this that we should just go ahead without them and proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's see if we can find someone who wants to speak against. Anyone who would like to speak against the SRU approval?
Star 6 if you're on the phone.
Star 6 if you're on a phone. Hearing nothing, seeing no indication from Miranda, I'm now going to ask if anyone would like to speak in some sort of neutral fashion, whatever that means, regarding this SRU. Seeing no indication from Miranda, I will close the public comment on this application, and I will ask the applicant, Mr. Michael, if he would like to speak any further, perhaps to clean up any possible misunderstandings or to respond to any comments. There is no need to speak, but if you would like to, you may.
The only thing I would say is that we have an in-house doctor we paid from the beginning every month, and we did create some educational material on why youth shouldn't smoke. It's certainly something that I would extend to the town to provide to any youth organizations, Cal Fort Kids, and it's important to me that minors do not smoke or consume marijuana in any other way.
Very fine. Thank you. The public hearing is now closed. I'm going to bring it back to the trustees who may wish to ask clarifying questions of the applicant or of staff? Getting late. I'm seeing people yawning, but we have to forge forward. Do any trustees have any additional questions before we discuss this further? Hearing none, I'm going to ask the trustees to comment. And if you have no comments, just let me know. Beginning with Trustee Corvallin. Any comments on this before we?
No, I don't have any comments. I think we should agree to move forward and reduce the parking requirements like we've done for everybody else.
Okay. Trustee Coombs Esmail.
Folks know how I feel about the parking requirements in the CBD. I think we should grant a variance, no questions asked, and I think we should pass this SRU.
Trustee Baumhover.
In complete agreement with Trustee Combs Ismail and Trustee Corvallin.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold.
No questions at all. Delighted to see business formation in our central business district. That's what it's there for. Thanks for doing what you do. And thanks for making it a clean operation for the last 4 years.
Trustee Blakemore.
So I want to apologize again for not having pre-read the SRU. I did catch up on it during the conversations here. I somehow had skipped to your next application and missed this one. I am in favor of approving this with along with approving your parking variance request.
Is there any further discussion before we move to a motion? Hearing none. Do we hear a motion to approve the SRU agreement?
Motion to approve SRU agreement.
Should we include
That's what I'm trying
that
to
we
word.
are waiving the parking?
Striking the parking requirements from the SRU agreement.
The motion is to approve the SRU agreement, striking any further requirements for parking within the CBD for this group. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Macy, please take the vote.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
and Trustee Blakemore.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I motion that we approve the resolution.
And do you have the number in front of you? Because we should include the number, and I don't see it.
It's 28.
2022-28. Could you please restate it that way?
I move that we approve the resolution 2022-28.
Do we hear a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Macy, please take the vote.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
and Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the resolution is approved. Moving right along because it's getting late. I'm going to now convene the Town of Nederland Marijuana License Authority. Macy, will you take the roll of the members present?
Mayor Taylor,
Here.
Trustee Baumhover,
Here.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Here.
Trustee Corvallin,
Here.
and Trustee Blakemore.
Here.
Thank you.
I will open the hearing of the application for the change of location for the retail marijuana license and for a new retail marijuana product manufacturing license for Igati at 92 East 1st Street. The authorities, now, I will ask our town administrator to comment.
Yes. All right, so I've got a little thing here too. So the application has two requests. The first request is for a change of location for the retail marijuana license to 92 East First Street. And the second request is for a retail product manufacturing license for the premises located at 92 East First Street. Under Section 6279 of the Nederland Municipal Code, the Marijuana Licensing Authority may change the location of a retail marijuana license if the licensing authority determines that the applicant meets the requirements in 6-279. The applicant must meet these requirements for both the change of location and for the new retail product manufacturing license, which they have, and I will read those very quickly. First, the application, including any required attachments and submissions, is complete and signed by the applicant. 2, the applicant has paid all required fees. 3, the application does not contain a material falsehood or misrepresentation. 4, prior to the issuance of a license, the premise at which the marijuana establishment will be operated has been inspected by local agencies described in paragraph 6-277-1 above to determine compliance with town's building and technical codes and is permitted under section 6-284 of this article. 5, the applicant, and proposed marijuana establishment complies with all of the requirements of this article, this code, and all state laws and administrative regulations pertaining to retail marijuana. 6, the applicant and manager are of good moral character. 7, the proposed marijuana establishment and the applicant, including each individual owner, investor, manager, satisfy the requirements of this code. 8, there are any special conditions on a license as may be necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and to obtain compliance with the requirements of this article and other applicable laws. But such conditions shall not be unreasonably impracticable as defined in section 16 of article, what numerical number that is, 18, yep, of the Colorado Constitution. 9, the license has not been transferred without applicable required town approval, change in ownership, change in location, fees, etc. Any attempt to transfer or assign a license without town approval voids the license. The application was complete and contained all required documents and information. The application has been submitted to the state for approval, and it is pending the local approval prior to state approval. Town staff and the fire department do not have any concerns with the license, nor do any other town departments. And public noticing of this hearing has been posted at the location as well as published in the newspaper in accordance with the Nederland Municipal Code, and the record of this hearing contains proof of such public notice.
I enter the application and all the supporting documentation as contained in the authority packet into the record of this hearing. Are there any questions for town staff on the application from the trustees? Do any trustees have questions for the applicant? Do any members of the public wish to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? *6 if you're on a cell phone.
And you actually want to.
Mitchell, I'm in favor of the application.
Thank you. Attorney Madsen, what were you saying?
Well, you'd probably want to give the applicant an opportunity to provide information.
Terribly sorry. Yes, I'm still learning.
David Michael, General Counsel for the applicant. If I may, in the interest of time, incorporate my prior testimony under the special SRU hearing into this particular application request in full, I would like to do so.
Greatly appreciated by all trustees and staff. So now, are there any questions from the public? Or any comments, I'm sorry, from the public in favor of or in opposition to this application?
I'd like to give public comment.
Please proceed.
Kathleen Chipai, 30-year business owner on First Street and 30-year resident, 18-year business owner on First Street. I'm in support of approving this move.
Thank you. Thank you. Any others from the public? Seeing and hearing nothing, bringing it back to the authority. Do any members of the authority have questions of the applicant or any member of the public that spoke on this application? Does the applicant wish to make any closing comments? I will now close the public hearing. Is there a motion to grant the application, or Attorney Madsen?
And just to be clear, there should be two motions.
Two motions.
One for each of the
Yes.
separate requests.
Yes. So we're looking for a motion to change the location of the license.
Move to approve Agati's application for a change of location for the retail license to 92 East First Street.
Second.
Macy, we have a motion and a second. Please take the vote.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Thank you.
I find that the application has met the requirements.
One more motion.
I'm terribly sorry.
Move to approve Agati's application for a retail marijuana product manufacturing license to 92 East First Street.
Second.
Attorney Madsen, do I need to recite this before we
You're
proceed?
fine. You don't have
We're
to
fine.
recite it. The motion is
All right.
sufficient.
That's fine. We have a motion and a second. Macy, please take the vote.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Mahold.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn, or do I just adjourn? Do we need a motion?
You can just adjourn.
Then I am hereby adjourning as the Town of Nederland Marijuana License Authority. Congratulations. And with that, we are done with our action items, and we're moving on to, I need to find all of my papers here because I'm a Luddite and I don't have a computer in front of me. On to our discussion item, annexation ordinance. And I believe Trustee
Move
Coombs
to
Ismail will
continue
be-
this item to a subsequent agenda.
Terribly,
Trustee Combs Ismail is proposing we table this item to a later agenda, correct?
Yes.
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second to table this discussion item. Macy, would you please take the vote?
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
and Trustee Coombs Ismail.
God, yes.
Thank you, Trustee Coombs Ismail. Is there any other business?
I do, sadly, have other business.
What? And now we see your strategy.
Indeed. No,
Trustee
it's-
Coombs Ismail, your other business, please.
My other business is that the Mountain Forum for Peace community yard sale is happening at the end of this month with drop-off time Sunday, May 29th, Tuesday, May 31st, Wednesday, June 1st, and that the yard sale opens Friday, June 3rd and goes through Sunday, June 5th. And it will be an amazing community reuse event, as it always is, and I encourage everybody to participate and volunteer if possible.
Thank you very much, Trustee Coombs Ismail. Any other comments? Any other business?
Just wanted to comment that your aim on the annexation proposal is very well written, and I'm looking forward to discussing that. Thank you for all your work on that.
Ditto.
Trustee Coombs Ismail, you are a hero up this early in the morning.
Sun is rising. It's time for me to go to bed.
Sun is
This-
rising. The meeting is ending.
This
Any other
is Tanya.
business?
This is Tanya.
Please
I
move to
want
adjourn.
to comment on the fact that we moved the trustee reports to the beginning of the meeting. And I feel like it's a terrible waste of time and energy where we could have used that time to be discussing this very important topic of annexation. And I think most of these things are written and almost everybody can read. And it seems to me a terrible waste of time. And that's just my opinion of it. I would think it should at least be moved to the back of the agenda so that we're not wasting our freshest moments listening to something I already read. And appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business? Or a motion to adjourn,
I have a couple.
please?
So from Attorney Mattson, she sent us email saying that it would be good to follow the same process and standards for issuance of a new license for the request to change location for an existing license for the retail marijuana. So I'm just saying that I think we should do that. And she also recommended that we clarify that this is the process that is followed for a change of location. Right. There was something about other parts of the code weren't clear. So how do we make that happen? Do we ask?
I believe we just did that.
Okay, great.
So it actually needs to be put in the code as to what the process is for a change of location, because it isn't in the code. It's silent. And the other thing that I think that's recommended is, as it was discussed, there's 4 retail licenses that may be issued. And one of the things that we tabled related to that is what happens when somebody relinquishes their license, and how do you decide what application is the one that would be before you for the new available license? Is it a lottery system or what? That needs to be put in the code.
Thank you. Anything else, Trustee Blakemore?
Yeah, so I'm hoping that at our June 7th meeting, we can have an aim for a moratorium on livestock, with the exception of chickens, horses, and llamas. So I just wanted to get people's feedback on that.
And that's already been seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Mahold, so that will move forward.
Okay.
But I mean, I see like people could have the same problems with the horses and the llamas that this particular family is creating with the goats. So I mean, obviously we'll
Those
bring
are
it-
already addressed in town code, which is, I believe, why.
Yeah, I saw that, but it's still, all right, that's fine. I will see it then. I may or may not be able to make it if depending on my cell signal, but I had a lot of comments because I'm going to be out of town and my cell signal's bad, and I'm going to try to log in at June. But I had a lot of comments I'd made for the annexation discussion, so I would hope that if I can't make it, that I could maybe chat them in or something. Is that an option, Miranda? If I can't, if my signal is really bad?
I think the request would be that you email those to the Board of Trustees, and then
Okay.
ideally those could be included in the
Yeah, they
packet.
would be like it discussed, you know,
Yeah.
if I'm not there.
Absolutely. We could add them into the agenda packet if you wanted to send them in advance.
Yeah. But
Okay.
like, you know, maybe like seriously discussed and not just like read and not mentioned. I hope I can call in, but I've been hearing that the cell signal is really bad lately in that area, so we'll see. All right, thanks.
Other business or a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. Macy, take the vote.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
Trustee Baumhover,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
and Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we are adjourned at 10:12.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning,
Thanks,
Eric.
folks.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Hey.
Eric, where are you?
You have a fun day.
Where are you
I'm
at?
in the UK, Tanya.
Oh.